Chapter 42. So you know. Fong muttered softly, just loud enough for Li to hear. That's not true. We're all family, second aunt. Please don't say that. Sang Hong quickly smiled and gave Fong a warning look. Second aunt's complexion doesn't look too good. Are you feeling unwell? If you really can't go, then don't go. I don't think grand aunt will blame second aunt. Fong pretended not to see Sang Hong's signal and deliberately said with concern. All right, quickly get in the carriage. Why do you have so much nonsense to say? Second old master Sang glared and reprimanded. It was unknown whether he was reprimanding his own wife or his niece-in-law. Li was just saying that, of course, she wouldn't really not go. She was purposely angering Fong Shi. She did not care about Fong Shi's objection at all. If Fong didn't object, then she would feel that something was wrong. Just thinking about meeting our grand aunt today, I was so happy that I couldn't sleep well last night. My complexion doesn't look too good, right? Don't worry, I'll be fine after a nap in the carriage. Ai, my husband's wife, come and help me up. Fong Shi coldly glanced at Sang Yin, who was standing at the side and touching her new clothes. She didn't move her feet. Xian. Sang Hong said softly. Fong then reluctantly stepped forward and helped Li up. Li's smile almost reached her ears and she immediately picked the best seat to sit down. She sighed comfortably. Yen, why aren't you coming up? Sang Yen and second old master Sang, who were admiring the new clothes, followed. Get up, you sit here. Second old master Sang glanced at his wife's seat and pointed to the side. Madame Li rolled her eyes at him and muttered under her breath. She reluctantly moved her butt and gave up the best spot. Sang Hong carried Sang Quan and Sang Muan into the car. Just as he was about to help Fong into the car, he heard Li's sharp voice saying, Io, what are you going to do with such a small child? Don't go, we can't sit there anymore. Second old master Sang also frowned and said, all of you are muddle-headed. Children don't know any better. What if they do something wrong and end up ruining our Sang family's reputation? Wasn't Mother Su at home? Quick, carry her down, carry her down. Sang Quan and Sang Muan had been looking forward to this day for a long time. When they heard second grandpa and second young mistress telling them not to go, they pouted and felt so sad that they were about to cry. Fong couldn't help but fly into a rage. She got into the car and bent down to hug the children, one in each hand. She said calmly, last time, this great aunt said that she wanted to see Xiao Quan and Xiao Nuan. Today, I must bring the siblings over. When you're at great aunt's house, you have to listen to father and mother. You have to follow the rules, understand? Sang Quan and Sang Nuan quickly nodded. Listen to mother. Listen to your father. Xian and I will be carrying the siblings. We won't take up any space. Second uncle and second aunt, don't worry. It's getting late. We have to hurry and set off. Sang Hong said as he got up. Second old master Sang snorted through his nostrils. Do as you wish. Don't blame me for not reminding you if you make a fool of yourselves. As he said that, he leaned back and closed his eyes to rest. Fong secretly suppressed the anger in her heart. Sang Hong nodded his head to comfort her and let the coachman start the carriage. The coachman acknowledged and whipped the horse. The horse hooves stomped and the wheels rumbled. The carriage swayed and soon, it was far away. Sang Ro came out of the house and her jealous and resentful gaze followed the carriage until it was out of sight. Only then did she spat on the ground and turn to enter the house. Pung. She slammed the door shut. It's still a long journey. Let's eat something to fill our stomachs first. When they reached the town, the breakfast shops were already open. The number of people on the streets gradually increased, and the aroma of food wafted from the stalls. With regards to Sang Hong's suggestion, second old master Sang and Li were of course very happy to oblige. Second old master Sang got down from the carriage and straightened his back. With his hands behind his back, he looked around and pointed at the most respectable shop in his field of vision. I think we should just go there and have a meal. Just as Fong Shi was about to say something, Sang Hong hurriedly nodded his head and said with a smile, all right then, let's go there. As he spoke, he pulled Fong Shi along with his son and daughter to follow his second uncle's family. Second old master Sang and Li did not treat Sang Hong as an outsider. They ordered beef noodles, pork stuffed buns, glutinous rice stuffed shumai, deep-fried shortbread, goose webs, shredded lamb tripe, crispy river fish, crispy bamboo shoots, and several other cold dishes. Seeing this, Fang's heart ached and she whispered, "This breakfast is almost as expensive as the carriage." Madame Li continued to eat and chuckled. "This is nothing. It's not even enough to fill the gaps between this great aunt's teeth. Eldest young master's wife, don't feel bad, ah." After saying that, she urged Sang Yan, "Eat more. We'll only reach your sister's house in the afternoon. I'll go get some soup for you." Fang glanced at her and did not say anything. "I'll put more chopped green onions and yuan tua in my bowl." Li raised her head and shouted. The soup, chopped green onions, and yuan tua in the shop were all free. After eating and drinking their fill, the group returned to the carriage. After traveling for more than an hour, Second Old Master Sang suddenly frowned and subconsciously clutched his stomach. His face turned green and white, and he could no longer hold it in and shouted, "Stop the carriage, stop the carriage! Quickly stop the carriage! My stomach can't take it anymore, I have to go down. Oh, old master, why is your face so ugly?" Li was shocked. "Did you eat something bad?" Sang Yan was also worried and blurted out, "Nonsense." Second Old Master Sang glared at his daughter. "Eat something bad?" She made it sound as if he had never eaten anything good before and would eat so much that his stomach would hurt. Although he had such doubts in his heart, Second Old Master Sang got down from the carriage and ran into the nearby forest. After a while, he staggered back. He climbed into the carriage weakly and waved his hand. "Let's go." In less than half an hour, Second Old Master Sang's face turned strange and he shouted again, "Stop the carriage! Stop the carriage!" Again he ran into the bushes. In less than 2 hours, Second Old Master Sang ran intermittently 4 times. His face was pale and his footsteps were weak. He did not even have the strength to speak. Not only was his complexion extremely unsightly, his new silk clothes were also wrinkled here and there, stained with a lot of mud. The corners of his robe and the front of his lapel were also pierced by the hooks, making him look battered and exhausted. "Second uncle, are you all right?" Sang Hong asked worriedly. "No. I can't take it anymore." Second Old Master Sang lowered his head to look at his battered appearance and shook his head. I'm not going. I'm not going." Not to mention that his body's condition did not allow it. It would be shameful to enter someone else's house like this. He, Second Old Master Sang, was dignified and dignified. He could not afford to lose face like this. Then what should we do? Should we send you back to town first? You're going to hire a car yourself? Madame Li's expression immediately changed. She had a bad premonition. We've already wasted quite a bit of time. If we go back and forth again, I'm afraid it will be too late. What if son-in-law and his wife get angry and say that our Sang family is putting on airs then? Fang said awkwardly. Second Old Master Sang and his wife did not really care if Sangwon was angry or not. But if son-in-law and his wife had an opinion, then it would be much more serious. They were still hoping that the Sher family would help them find a good marriage for their daughter. You two go, you two go. Second Old Master Sang stared at Li. You come down. I saw a few houses in the east. We'll go there to rest for a bit. When you come back, remember to pick us up. What are you still standing there for? Come down. Second Old Master Sang glared and roared. Coming. Coming. Li quickly got down from the carriage. I'm not going either. Li was very domineering. Although Sang Yen had been doted on by her since young, she had also been reprimanded many times. She was both fearful and dependent of her. And her personality was also very cowardly. She did not dare to imagine what it would be like to leave her mother's side. Besides, Fang did not see eye to eye with her mother, and she did not have any sisterly feelings with Sangwon in the past. You wretched lass, you're trying to anger me to death. Go, why aren't you going? Madame Li had expected better from Sang Yan. She had been suppressing a belly full of anger in her heart, but now that there was a fuse, she immediately vented it all out. She hurriedly walked over and poked Sang Yan's forehead with her finger several times as she scolded her. Sang Yan couldn't get down in front of everyone. She covered her face and burst into tears. Sobbing, she refused to leave. I think it's better for Ah Yen to stay behind and accompany you. With the 2 children, I'm afraid we won't be able to take care of her. Sang Hong said with some difficulty. This was exactly what Sang Yen was afraid of. She was just a timid country girl without a backbone by her side. On the contrary, her cousin-in-law did not like her at all. If she were to follow, wouldn't she become a joke? Father! I want to stay behind and take care of father. Sang Yen quickly ran over and grabbed second old Master Sang's arm, looking at him pleadingly. All right. Let her stay. Second old Master Sang's legs were weak, and his stomach was still throbbing with pain. It was unbearable, and all he wanted to do was to find a place to lie down comfortably before calling for a doctor. How could he care about anything else? Li had no other choice. She glared at Sang Yen and scolded her a few times before turning to Sang Hong and sighing. Aya, what should we do? We came out in a hurry and did not bring any money with us. We still have to eat lunch and old master still needs to see a doctor. What should we do? Sang Hong took out 2 silver coins and handed it to Li with a smile. Second aunt. Why don't you take this money and use it first? Li quickly received it and stroked it before sighing. Although it's a little, it'll be fine. I won't delay you any longer. Hurry and leave. Remember to send our regards to old mistress, young master, and young mistress. Li looked at the carriage and sighed bitterly. But then she comforted herself. Either way, these relatives would not be able to run away. Even if they did not meet this time, the next time would be different. I don't believe that the Sher family would shut their doors and not acknowledge them as relatives. With that thought, Li's mood turned for the better. But when she thought of not being able to visit the Sher family, she could not help but feel resentful. She secretly rolled her eyes at second old Master Sang, and scolded him countless times in her heart. On the other side of the carriage, Feng finally could not help but laugh out loud. Second uncle, will there be any problems? Sang Hong was a little worried. Don't worry. Nothing will happen. Feng smiled. She was very gentle with her actions. Second old Master Sang would be fine after lying down for a while. Sang Hong sighed helplessly. If not for the fact that he was afraid of leaving a bad first impression on the Sher family, he would not have agreed to do so. Chapter 43. In Ning Garden after breakfast, Sangwon began to dress up. Today was the first time big brother and sister-in-law came to acknowledge their relatives, so they had to be treated grandly, especially after old Mistress Zhuang's visit. It could be seen how much her mother-in-law Wang cared about her image. Thus, Sangwon acted out of character and dressed as luxuriously as possible. She wore a begonia red brocade robe with great patterned embroidery, gold and silver thread interlaced with half a finger's worth of edges. She wore a scarlet lotus flower patterned pleated skirt, and a pair of red satin shoes with a soft bottom. Her glossy black hair was tied up in a bun with a golden hairpin in front of her eyes. Her hair was covered with white jade inlaid with gold, and her left hair was pierced with a golden bouyao with a ruby dripping with pearls. Her figure was slender, her waist was curvy, her neck was slender, her skin was fair and delicate, her cheeks were lightly stained with rouge, her lips were soft and red, her eyebrows reached her temples, and her eyes were like stars. Her every movement was graceful and dignified, exuding elegance. Her entire body exuded an air of elegance that made people admire her. Young mistress is so beautiful. Xingji and the rest had never seen Sangwon dressed so splendidly before, and could not help but exclaim with sparkling eyes. Isn't that so? Young mistress has a good life, and her temperament is also good. Regardless of whether it is a simple home life or a splendid dress, they are all outstanding. Mama Li also praised with a smile. Sangwon smiled embarrassedly. Even she was secretly shocked when she saw her own reflection in the mirror. She could not believe that the elegant person in the mirror was actually herself. After Sangwon finished dressing up, she brought Mama Li and the rest to Wang's place for a walk. Along the way, when the people saw her, they stopped and bowed sideways. Their eyes all lit up and then went into a daze. Their eyes were full of shock and admiration. When Wang saw Sangwon, she also opened her mouth and was stunned. She blinked and then clapped her hands happily. Good. This is our Sher family's eldest daughter-in-law. Come sit down. She then smiled at the crowd. Tell me which daughter-in-law in Qingzhou is as outstanding as my daughter-in-law. Even the madams and mistresses of the officials' families can't compare. Everyone naturally joined in the fun, laughing and praising Sangwon. If he didn't say anything against his heart, it would be easier to praise him. Wang was secretly proud and unconsciously thought of Madame Zhuang. She thought that the next time she took her daughter-in-law out like this, she would like to see what Madame Zhuang would say. Let's see if she can still laugh at the Shi family's eldest son for marrying a daughter-in-law from a poor family. If they have the ability, their Zhuang clan should also try marrying such a woman. Let's see if they can marry her. Sangwon was embarrassed by Wang's undisguised gaze and words. She sat down gracefully and said with a smile, "Daughter-in-law doesn't know how to dress up, so I specially asked mother to see if there's anything wrong. If there's anything wrong, please teach me, mother." Very good, very good. You should dress like this when you meet guests in the future. The more Wang looked at it, the more she liked it. If I were to teach you, you would dress like this too. Sangwon breathed a sigh of relief and hurriedly said with a smile, "Hearing mother say so, I'm relieved." Wang saw that she was worried about her own opinion, and was even happier. She smiled and praised her. Gu Fengzi just happened to come in. When she saw Sangwon, she couldn't help but feel jealous. However, her eyes lit up and she affectionately held Sangwon's hand and praised with a smile. "At first glance, I thought that it was some rich family's madam who came to visit. With cousin-in-law dressed like this, it's completely different from before. It's so beautiful. Don't you think so, Aunt?" Yes. That's what I said just now." Wang sure smiled. If old Mistress Zhuang were to see you, she would definitely have nothing to say. Gu Fengzi was indeed the person who understood Wang the best. She pointed out Wang's thoughts. As expected, Wang sure laughed even more heartily. That woman from the Zhuang clan didn't even have a daughter-in-law, so how could she compare to the Shi clan? Gu Fengzi turned and said, "It's a pity that cousin-in-law should have dressed up like this the last time. Although old Mistress Zhuang can't be compared to eldest young master and eldest young Mistress Zhuang, she is still a close friend of the Shi clan." Wang's heart skipped a beat and her smile faded a little. She couldn't help but suspect Sangwon's intentions. When meeting with her brother and sister-in-law, she knew how to dress up. How could she be so casual when meeting with her own guests? Even if Xiao Ke forgot to pass the message, shouldn't she still be dignified when meeting a guest? She didn't even know this? Could it be that she did it on purpose? Sangwon cursed in her heart. She stood up and said to Wang, "Mother, Wanyang has learned a lesson from the last time. That's why she always remembers it in her heart. Naturally, she won't do it again. The last time, Wanyang didn't know the severity of the matter. Mother, Wanyang comes from a small family and doesn't know the rules. If there's anything she thinks or doesn't do well, mother, please teach her." Wang heard her self-pity and her heart softened. She hurriedly raised her hand and ordered someone to help her sit down. She smiled and said, "You're a good person. Mother knows it clearly. All right, don't be like that. Don't worry, it doesn't matter if you don't know. As long as you have the heart, mother will teach you anything." Sangwon thanked her happily. "Thank you, mother. We're a family. Why are you being so polite?" Wang smiled and asked, "Oh right, will your brother and sister-in-law be here soon?" Sangwon was also looking forward to it. She shook her head and said with a smile, "I don't think it'll be so soon. It'll still be a while. I heard that the journey isn't short. Let's wait then. Go back and wait. When they arrive, go to the second gate to welcome them. You don't have to go out. Let Fengju go out to welcome them," Wang said. She then asked Gu Fengzi if everything was arranged properly. Gu Fengzi quickly smiled and replied. Wang smiled and nodded before letting them go. Sangwon returned to Ning Garden and sat on the couch to wait. It was already close to noon. She reckoned that her brother and sister-in-law would arrive in less than half an hour. Just as she was wondering if she should ask someone to invite Shi Fengju over from the study room, Shi Fengju had already stepped in. "Big brother and the others aren't here yet." When he looked up, Sangwon, who was dressed to the nines, came into view. Shi Fengju's eyes lit up and his heart skipped a beat. He stared blankly at the beautiful face in front of him and was at a loss for words. He knew that his wife in name had a gentle and elegant temperament. Her appearance and temperament were top-notch. However, he had never thought that she would look so good when she was dressed up. So charming and moving. A poem subconsciously appeared in his mind. Heavy makeup and light makeup are always appropriate. It was a simple phrase, but in this world, there were very few women who were always appropriate. I'm afraid it'll take a while. I was just about to ask someone to invite you over. What a coincidence that you're here. Sangwon stood up and walked towards Shi Fengju with a smile. Shi Fengju's heartbeat suddenly sped up. His body stiffened and his mouth became dry. He hurriedly avoided Sangwon's gaze and stammered. Then I'll wait a little longer. Wait a little longer. Her slender waist was graceful and elegant. When she moved, a faint fragrance lingered around his nose. Shi Fengju suddenly had the urge to hug her tightly. However, Sangwon smiled softly and walked up to him. She loosely held his arm and sat down. She personally took the tea from the servant girl and handed it to him. She smiled sweetly and nodded gently. And wait a little longer. In front of Mama Lee, Sangwon had always served him like this. Shi Fengju was used to it. However, today he felt that there was something wrong with his whole body. Her breath smelled like orchids, her faint fragrance, her sweet smile, her jade-like porcelain skin, her slender neck, and her delicate, white, soft hands all stimulated his senses and stirred his heart. Sangwon was embarrassed by his gaze. However, in front of the servant girls, she couldn't do anything. She could only pretend that she didn't know and retract her hand with a red face. Unexpectedly, Shi Fengju was so engrossed in her beauty that he didn't notice that he didn't hold the teacup properly. "Aya!" he exclaimed. The tea spilled on his brocade blue robe and the front lapel was wet. "Are you all right?" Sangwon was shocked. She hurriedly went to check on him. "Did you burn yourself?" Shi Fengju asked at the same time. Sangwon was stunned. I'm fine." She thought to herself, "Unless you threw the teacup at me, how could I burn myself?" It was obvious that this person's brain was muddled. Xingji, Hongyi, and the others had never seen their eldest young master so absent-minded. They couldn't help but purse their lips and laugh. Mama Lee saw this and couldn't help but scold them. "What are you girls doing? Hurry up and help your eldest young master change his clothes." Xingji and the others quickly stopped laughing and invited Shi Fengju inside to change his clothes. "It's good that you didn't burn yourself." Shi Fengju smiled and got up to enter the room. Sangwon then realized that the servant girls were all looking at her with mischievous smiles. Her face immediately turned red. "Why are you all still standing there? Hurry up and get to work. Go outside and ask if your eldest uncle and eldest sister-in-law are here yet." Mama Lee laughed and scolded them. The servant girls immediately scattered like birds and beasts. Only Mama Lee and Sangwon were left in the room. Mama Lee smiled and went up to Sangwon and whispered, "Young mistress, you should dress up more in the future. Look at your eldest young master, his eyes are fixed on you. It's obvious that he likes it." "Nanny." Sangwon was embarrassed and her face was so red that it was about to bleed. "Young mistress, why are you so embarrassed? Isn't this how husband and wife should be?" Mama Lee saw her shy face and earnestly advised, "Listen to the old slave. You shouldn't put on airs. If your eldest young master likes it, you should dress up more to please him. If you don't please him, that shameless person outside will be restless." Sangwon shyly turned her face to the side and lowered her head. Mama Lee smiled. "Old slave is doing this for young mistress' sake. Although with your temperament, no one can touch your position as the Shi family's young mistress. If a husband and wife are not harmonious and loving, what's the point of guarding your status?" Sangwon finally raised her head. Biting her soft red lips, she gratefully said, "Mama, thank you. You don't have to be so polite with old slave." Mama Lee waved her hand and smiled. "Old slave, I just want to see the birth of your eldest young master's child." Sangwon was stunned and her heart could not help but reveal some uneasiness. After Shi Fengju changed his clothes and came out, Mama Lee gave him a look and quietly retreated with Xingji, leaving the beautiful atmosphere to the young couple. However, she did not know that Sangwon was embarrassed and speechless towards Mama Lee's good intentions. If the two of them were really husband and wife, that would naturally be good. But they were not. Shi Fengju had already calmed down, but when he saw his charming wife, His eyes could not hide the admiration and admiration. Chapter 44. She was really a good woman. In fact, it wasn't just her appearance that mattered. You look really good dressed like this, Shifengju said with a smile. Sangwon looked up slightly. Seeing his honest expression, she couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. She subconsciously thought that she wasn't a vase or a painting. But that was exactly what he thought when he looked at her. Is that so? Sangwon said lightly. Don't be angry. I didn't mean anything else. I'm serious. Shifengju saw that she was faintly unhappy and thought that she must be blaming him for being rude. He hurriedly said, It's a compliment, a compliment. Sangwon suddenly felt a little resentful. She said angrily, Am I prettier than your cousin? Shifengju was stunned. He didn't understand what she meant. Sangwon regretted her slip of the tongue. Why did it sound like she was jealous? She smiled and interrupted. My eldest brother and sister-in-law should be here soon, right? I'll have to trouble you to accompany them today. We're all on the same side. Don't say that, Shifengju said with a smile. On the same side? Shifengju was also taken aback. Thinking about how they would be strangers in a year and a half, he suddenly felt a strange emotion in his heart. When he looked up, he saw that Sangwon's hair was a little crooked. He couldn't help but lean over and raise his hand. What are you doing? Sangwon's body stiffened. She should have backed away, but for some reason, she just sat there and didn't move. She just nodded her chin stiffly. Your hair is a little crooked, Shifengju said and helped her gently adjust it. The two of them were very close. They were so close that they could smell each other's breaths. It was as if they could hear each other's heartbeats. Shifengju was a little absent-minded when he smelled a faint fragrance. Looking down, Shifengju's lips were adorable. They were slightly parted, soft and full, and glowed with a faint alluring light. Thinking back to the unexpected and surprisingly good feeling of that kiss, Shifengju's Adam's apple moved subconsciously. He suddenly thought of Gu Fangzi and was shocked. He hurriedly backed away, coughed, and got up with a smile. I'll go out and see if she's here. He hurriedly left. What's wrong with him? Sangwon didn't even realize that her eyes had suddenly dimmed. She unconsciously raised her hand and gently caressed her delicate cheeks. Her hand felt hot. Finally, a little after noon, Sang Hong and Fang's family entered Qingzhou City in a carriage. Looking out through the curtains of the carriage, one could see shops in great numbers, shadows of people moving about, people jostling shoulder to shoulder, bustling with activity. All kinds of hawking voices rose and fell, ceaselessly ringing in the ears. Qingzhou is a big city after all. It's so lively. Fang couldn't help but sigh. She allowed the two children to lift the curtain and look outside curiously. That's right. The north and south of the stronghold is a place where merchants gather and goods flow freely. How can it not be lively? Sang Hong also sighed. Master Sang, where are we going? Picking a relatively secluded corner, the coachman stopped the carriage and turned his head to ask. Oh, we're going to the Shi family. Sang Hong quickly said. Shi family? Which Shi family? The coachman was a little impatient. He thought to himself, there are so many people with the surname Shi in this world. Who would tell others like this? Master Sang and his wife seemed like sensible people. He didn't want to be so unreliable. It wasn't that Sang Hong was unreliable, but that Sang Hong felt that since the Shi family was the richest family in Qingzhou, the coachman would definitely know about it. This was because he had done his research before hiring the coachman. This coachman specialized in running business between town and Qingzhou, and claimed to be very familiar with Qingzhou City. However, he didn't expect that his family's attire could only be considered as an ordinary well-off family. The coachman didn't even think that they were looking for the richest family in Qingzhou City. Sang Hong then said, It's the richest family in Qingzhou, the Shi family. It should be around Qingxi Avenue. You're going to the richest family in Qingzhou? The coachman's eyes widened. Yes. Sang Hong smiled a little embarrassedly. Oh, then I know. The coachman nodded. He only thought that they were the relatives of one of the Shi family's stewards, and continued driving without asking any more questions. The coachman gradually drove the carriage away from the bustling city, and turned into a quiet and secluded avenue. At the end of the road, they turned into a wide alley paved with large bluestone tiles. The carriage stopped in front of a majestic house with stone lions squatting on both sides. Sang Hong and Fong brought the children and carried the gifts down. The square in front of the house was very wide. The stone lions in front of the door were mighty and ancient Chinese trees were dense. The double eaves of the door were carved with vermilion jade, exuding a boundless aura of wealth. The door was wide open, and they could see a huge marble wall and lush flowers and trees inside. 2 family members stood on the left and right side of the house. The Shi family is indeed the richest family in Qingzhou. Look at this aura. It really wasn't a bluff. Look at this gate. It's even bigger than our house. Fong couldn't help but tug at her sleeves and whisper. Even though she was usually bold and shrewd, when she saw this rich and imposing aura, she couldn't help but feel ashamed of her inferiority, and became a little timid. That's right. Sang Hong sighed softly. He couldn't help but think to himself, just seeing the gate is already so grand. I wonder if one has to endure living here? Outsiders said that the Sang family had climbed up the social ladder, and there wasn't a single person who wasn't envious. But who would have thought that his sister had it tough? Sang Hong tidied his clothes and looked at Fong before instructing the Sang siblings to hold hands and follow. The 2 of them carried the gifts forward. Sorry to trouble this little brother. Sang Hong cupped his hands and spoke politely with a smile. But before he could finish his sentence, the family member interrupted. Are you here to visit relatives? Yes, I know. Please follow me. The family member waved his hand and gestured for them to enter. AI this? Fong asked curiously. You. Quickly invite them in. We can talk inside. The family member didn't allow Fong to finish her sentence and urged impatiently. Okay, let's talk inside. Sang Hong hurriedly signaled his wife to stop. Fong rolled her eyes at the family member and followed in. The family member led Sang Hong and his family through many twists and turns before arriving at a secluded hall. All right, wait here. I'll go inform them. Our family has strict rules. Wait here for me and don't wander around. If you bump into someone you shouldn't bump into, it'll be troublesome. Today is the Dragon Boat Festival. There are many relatives and friends coming and going. After saying that, the family member disappeared like a wisp of smoke. Fong was still shouting from behind. AI, do you know who we are? Why are you informing them? Where are you going to inform them? AI. Forget it, let's wait for a while. Sang Hong said helplessly. What's the meaning of this? What is the Shi family doing? What is the meaning of this? Is this how they treat their guests? If they look down on our Sang family, then don't welcome our daughter into the family. Fong said angrily. Seeing his son and daughter curiously playing around the table and chairs, his face darkened as he shouted, forcing the 2 of them to sit down obediently. Fengju isn't that kind of person, don't make wild guesses. If someone were to hear this, how will Wan Yang face the world? Sang Hong hurriedly persuaded his wife softly. Fong became even angrier after hearing that and said hatefully, I don't know what's wrong with our family's grand-aunt. She clearly knew that we were coming today, so why didn't she ask someone reliable to wait for us? Could it be that she also despises our family? You're at it again. How can Wan Yang be like this? Besides, there are elders in the Shi family, so how can it be Wan Yang's turn to be in charge? Aren't you deliberately making things difficult for her? Fong sneered. They're the ones making things difficult for us now. Her father, don't tell me you didn't notice it. Look at that servant, that expression, that gaze. Sang Hong sighed inwardly and smiled warmly. All right, don't be angry anymore. The same rice can raise 100 different kinds of people. Which rich family doesn't have a few wicked servants? We're here to see Wan Yang, so why do you have to be angry with them? Let's wait a little longer. If Wan Yang doesn't see us after waiting for a long time, she'll naturally ask. Fong sneered. All right, then I'll wait. I'd like to see how long we'll be left hanging here. Fong said angrily. If not for her understanding of Sang Wan's character, and her good impression of Shi Fengju after meeting him, Fong would have definitely flared up. Who knew that the family of 4 would end up waiting for nearly 2 hours? Occasionally, there would be a few people passing by the hall, but other than looking at them curiously and whispering, No one came over to ask about them. Fang's face became uglier and uglier, and the anger that was brewing in her stomach was about to explode. Sang Quan and Sang Nuan's stomachs were growling from hunger, but they did not dare to provoke their mother. The two of them stuck to Sang Hong's embrace and acted coquettishly, crying out that they were hungry. Sang Hong could only comfort them and coax them softly. Sang Wan reckoned that it was about time, so she brought Mama Li Luya and the rest to wait at the second door. After a long while no one came, so she sent someone to inquire about it, but to no avail. After a while, Shi Fengju came in again and said, "I've sent someone to watch the entrance of the alley. Don't worry, we'll know when they come. Don't worry, go back and wait." Sang Wan became a little impatient and shook her head. "I'll wait here. They should be here soon." After half an hour, there was still no sign of them. Xingji ordered someone to lay out a brocade mat in the Jasper Flower Hall not far away, and asked Sang Wan to sit down and wait. "Could something have happened to my big brother and sister-in-law?" Sang Wan asked worriedly as she asked Shi Fengju to come over. Shi Fengju ordered Chang Huan to ride out of town to look for them, and comforted her. "Don't worry. The road from Willowtown to here is the official road, so there are many people coming and going. Even if something did happen, we'll be able to find out." He decided not to leave and waited with her in the Jasper Flower Hall. They waited anxiously, but little did they know that Fang's side was about to explode. "Aya, you've been waiting for a long time, haven't you? Come, eat something to fill your stomach. So pitiful. Which steward or mother's relative are you? It's so unreliable. How could they leave you here for so long?" An old woman wearing a red coarse cloth walked in with a tray in her hand, and said sympathetically in a shrill voice. On the tray were 2 plates of pastries, giving off an enticing aroma. Sang Quan and Sang Nuan's eyes lit up when they saw it, and they couldn't help but sniff. Their 2 little faces were full of desire, and they cheered as they ran towards the old woman. "Smells good. Smells good." Chapter 45. Kiki. AI, quickly take it. Take it and eat. This brother and sister-in-law should eat some too. How can you go hungry? The old maid said with a smile. "Stop. Come back." Fang was so angry that her hands and feet were cold and her body was trembling. A gust of wind came over and pulled the Sang siblings back. She glared at the servant and raised her hand to flip the tray in her hands. Outrageous. Ancien. Sang Hong was also very angry, but he still had some calmness left. He quickly stepped forward and held Fang's raised hand tightly. "Ancien." Fang bit her lips hatefully. Her eyes were red as she looked straight at him, silently expressing her anger and grievance. The Shi family was too much. This was humiliation. Blatant humiliation. "Io. Why is this sister-in-law so fierce? It's fine if you don't appreciate my good intentions, but do you have to be so rude? Really? If you don't want to eat, then don't eat. I'll feed it to the dogs." The servant rolled her eyes and spat on the ground before turning to leave. The Sang siblings stared helplessly at the food that was about to reach their mouths flying away. The 2 siblings pouted their lips and started to sob. "Don't cry." Fang glared at them and slapped away Sang Hong's hand. She chased after the servant and asked coldly, "Where does your young mistress live? How do I get there?" Who are you? Why are you looking for our young mistress? Our young mistress is a noble, and not someone that anyone can meet." The servant looked at Fang with disdain. "Bring me there." Fang grabbed her collar and her cold eyes were filled with anger. "Bring me there. Let's go." Don't. Why are you so fierce? I'll go. You let go of me first." The servant was shocked and immediately softened her stance. "Ancien, what are you doing?" After Sang Hong comforted the 2 children, he quickly caught up with them and pulled Fang to the side. He politely said to the old woman, "I'm sorry, Auntie. My wife was rude. Please don't take offense. Auntie, please." The biddy giggled. She looked at Sang Hong and said with a smile, "You are a man who understands etiquette. It's just that you married a hag. Is there something you need from young mistress?" "No, please." Sang Hong shook his head. "Oh, that's what I said. Our young mistress isn't someone who anyone can meet just because they want to. You should know your place." The old woman nagged and left. What are you talking about? Fong was so angry that she wanted to chase after him, but Sang Hong desperately pulled her back. Preposterous. Preposterous. The Shi family had gone too far. Sang Wan, that damned girl, how ungrateful. You don't want me to go and cause trouble, right? Okay, let's go home. Let's go home. Ah Xian, don't call me. Fong covered her face with tears and her shoulders trembled slightly. After a moment, she raised her head and said in a nasal voice, I've had enough. If they don't want to see us, are we going to be so lowly as to be humiliated by them? Don't talk to me about misunderstandings. Without the master's orders, would the servants dare to do this? If you want to stay, you stay. I'm leaving. Madame Fong was fuming with anger. She held onto one child in each hand and glanced around. Based on her memory, she picked a direction and left. Ah Xian. Ah Xian. Sang Hong could not stop the angry Fong. He sighed softly and thought to himself, fine, let's go out first. He hurriedly carried the things and followed. The Shi family's mansion was spacious, and there were layers upon layers of buildings. In between there were flowers and trees and winding paths. Without someone to lead the way, how could it be easy to get out? Fong hated the Shi family. Even if she met someone on the way, she would not ask about it. She walked around with the children with a cold face. She cursed in her heart. I don't believe that I can't get out. Io, isn't that first uncle? Eldest aunt. Zhan Huan suddenly exclaimed and ran over in a hurry. Sang Hong and Fong continued walking and turned a deaf ear to Chang Huan's call. It was not intentional, but they did not think that Chang Huan was calling them. First uncle, first aunt. Chang Huan ran in front of them and laughed while panting. Why are you here? Fong stared at him and sneered. You're right, we shouldn't be here. The smile on Zhan Huan's face froze and he suddenly felt that something was amiss. However, he had been by Shi Fengju's side for a long time and was the cleverest one. He knew that something unpleasant must have happened, but it was not his turn to ask. Thus he pretended to be confused and said with a silly smile, Isn't that so? First young master and young mistress waited for a long time and did not see you. Young mistress was very anxious and thought that something had happened to you on the road. First young master ordered this servant to ride a horse outside the city to ask around, but this servant did not hear anything about anyone on the road. Thus I hurried back to report to first young master and young mistress. Coincidentally, we met first uncle and first aunt. Please come in. First young master and young mistress must be very anxious. Chang Huan said and hurriedly ordered someone to report to Shi Fengju and Sang Wan. He then took the things in Sang Hong's hands with a smile. Let this servant do it. Your first young master and young mistress are really waiting for us? Fong did not believe and stared at Chang Huan suspiciously. Oh, look at what you're saying. Chang Huan smiled. His meaning could not be more obvious. Who didn't know that young mistress's family was coming to acknowledge their relatives today? All right, Ah Xian, don't let Ah Wan and brother-in-law wait for too long. Let's go. Chang Huan was someone who had seen it before, so Sang Hong naturally believed him. He believed that his sister was not someone who did not recognize her relatives. Perhaps, there was really a misunderstanding earlier. It was no wonder. After all, the Shi family was a big family with countless relatives and friends. There would be many people visiting during the holidays. It was understandable that the servants were so busy that they made a mistake. Sang Hong was used to thinking positively of people, but Fong was different. Especially the humiliation she suffered earlier. It was impossible for Chang Huan's words to completely erase it. She snorted and said coldly, If they're really waiting for us, then come and receive us personally. We'll wait here. AI, if they don't come in 15 minutes, we'll go back first. We can't abandon our work at home. Chang Huan was stunned. The smile on his face was already very forced. This. Ah Xian, don't pull me. You're Chang Huan, right? Why aren't you going to tell your first young master and young mistress? A quarter of an hour, remember that. Feng Shi glared at Sang Hong and said, AI, this servant will go now. I'll go now. Chang Huan quickly nodded and ran off. Seeing that it was already past noon, and that her brother and sister-in-law were still nowhere to be seen, Sangwon could not help but think of what had happened on this day in her previous life. She was anxious and flustered. She felt sullen and almost shed tears. Shi Fengju quickly comforted her. First young master. Young mistress. First young master and first young mistress are already here. Chang Huan is leading them in. Finally, someone rushed in to report. Really? Sangwon's eyes lit up and she stood up. She had always been elegant and had never lost her composure before. Shi Fengju could not help but smile. Don't be anxious. Since they're here, it's fine. I'll go and welcome them. Take your time. Thank you, first young master. Sangwon nodded and smiled like a flower. Thus, Shi Fengju, who had gone out, bumped into Chang Huan, who had come back to pass on Feng's message. Chang Huan felt that it was necessary to remind the first young master, so she explained the situation. Shi Fengju stopped in his tracks and frowned. Find out what happened. They weren't rude to first young master and first young mistress, right? This servant wouldn't dare. Chang Huan quickly straightened her body and replied. Shi Fengju nodded. Let's go. Lead the way. When Sang Hong and Feng saw Shi Fengju, they finally relaxed. After hearing Chang Huan's words, Feng's mood had calmed down a lot. Sang Hong comforted her again, and Shi Fengju came over. He was very polite and had a smile on his face as he greeted them. Elder brother, elder sister-in-law. Feng did not reveal any emotions. She let Sang Hong and Shi Fengju exchange pleasantries while she held her son and daughter's hands and followed behind them. I'm really sorry for neglecting elder brother and elder sister-in-law. Please come in. Wan Yang is waiting at the second gate. Shi Fengju raised his hand and made a gesture of invitation. Brother-in-law, you're too polite. You don't have to be so polite to a family member. Sang Hong cupped his hands. After entering the second gate, Sangwon saw them and smiled in surprise. She went forward and curtsied. Elder brother, elder sister-in-law, you're finally here. As she spoke, she held onto Feng's arm with a face full of joy. Feng's heart also softened. She smiled and hurriedly called the Sang siblings forward to greet her as auntie. The Sang siblings obediently greeted her. Sangwon raised her small face and said with admiration, Auntie is so beautiful. Everyone couldn't help but laugh. Sangwon intimately leaned over and pinched her cheeks. She smiled and said, Our family Xiaonwan has grown up to be even more beautiful. When everyone returned to Ning Garden, the servant girls fetched some water to wash up. Sangwon then said to Shi Fengju, Shall we go to mother's place now? My elder brother and sister-in-law haven't seen mother yet. Shi Fengju looked at the time and smiled. Elder brother and elder sister-in-law must be hungry after rushing for such a long time. Let's have a meal first. I'm afraid mother is already taking her afternoon nap. It won't be too late to see her later. Sangwon then instructed Mama Li to go over personally and inform Nanny Jiang. Mama Li agreed and went. Ning Garden then ordered the servants to serve the food. The Sang siblings were too young to sit at the table. Sangwon ordered a few dishes to be served on a clean plate, and had Luya bring them to the side room to eat. The four of them then sat down as the host and guest. Sang Hong and Feng were really hungry, so they didn't refuse. Only Feng was worried about the Sang siblings. She was worried that they would make a fuss, so she hastily ate some food. She then quietly told Sangwon that she was going to take care of the children. Sangwon smiled and went with her. Only Shi Fengju and Sang Hong were left at the table. Shi Fengju signaled the servants to leave. After exchanging a few pleasantries, Shi Fengju smiled and asked, Did elder brother and elder sister-in-law's journey go smoothly? It was fine. Sang Hong was stunned for a moment before he smiled and nodded. Shi Fengju also smiled and said hesitantly, I heard from Chang Huan that she met elder brother and elder sister-in-law in the Fu. Did something happen? Elder brother, please don't mind me. I don't have any other intentions. I'm just worried that the servants don't know the rules and offend elder brother and elder sister-in-law. Elder brother, please don't hold back. You can just tell me. Sang Hong shook his head and smiled lightly. Brother-in-law, you're thinking too much. Nothing happened. Hee, aren't we fine? What could have happened? Chapter 46. Shi Fengjiu already knew in his heart whether or not there was a problem. He did not expect Sang Hong to settle the matter peacefully, and could not help but feel some respect for him. He raised his wine cup and said, "That's good. That's good. There are good and bad servants everywhere, so it's inevitable that there will be some who are not considerate enough. Big Brother's magnanimity is admirable. This cup of wine is for Big Brother, please." "You flatter me." Sang Hong raised his cup and clinked it with Shi Fengjiu's before downing it in one gulp. He sighed and said, "Actually, as long as Wan Yang is well, nothing else matters. I know that brother-in-law is a reliable person, so I won't say anything else. Wan Yang has a gentle personality and is willing to keep many things to herself. In the future, I'll have to trouble brother-in-law to worry about her." He, of course. Shi Fengjiu subconsciously avoided his gaze and smiled to cover it up. On the other side of the partition, Sang Quan and Sang Nuan were really hungry. In addition to being in an unfamiliar environment, they ate in an orderly manner and did not make any noise. Fong came over to see them and felt relieved. Sang Wan then helped her sister-in-law to sit at the side and the two drank tea and chatted. "Sister-in-law, did something happen? Why did you and Big Brother arrive so late?" Sang Wan asked. Fong's face immediately showed some anger. Thinking of Sang Hong's words, she shook her head and smiled. "Nothing. What could have happened? We were just delayed on the way." "Is there really nothing?" Her expression did not escape Sang Wan's eyes. Sang Wan sighed faintly. "Sister-in-law, are you treating me as an outsider? Can't you even tell me?" Fong was stunned for a moment. She thought for a moment and simply said, "It's not that I don't want to tell you. To tell you the truth, your brother is afraid that you'll be angry and won't let me tell you. But I feel that telling you will give you a reminder. You should be more careful in the future." Fong then told Sang Wan everything that happened when she entered the door and said, "If it weren't for the coincidence of meeting Chang Huan, your brother and I might have already left Qingzhou." Fong's face paled slightly. She thought to herself, if I had left just like that, Wan Yang would have lost all her face. "Wan Yang, won't you be angry with your brother and sister-in-law? My brother and sister-in-law didn't do it on purpose. It's really too much." Fong felt very aggrieved. Either the husband and wife would be wronged, or the younger sister would be wronged. In short, one of them would have to suffer. This made her very angry. Luya, who had been listening attentively, said angrily, "Young mistress, you don't have to say any more. It must be Miss Biao's doing. She's in charge of the house. Who else but her could order her subordinates to do such a wicked thing?" Sang Wan couldn't stop her. Fong's face had already turned cold. She asked doubtfully, "Miss Gu? What Miss Biao? Why would she make things difficult for you? Why? Is Miss Biao in charge of the house?" Sang Wan could only smile and say, "This Miss Biao is the daughter of my mother-in-law's younger sister. She lost her mother at a young age and was raised by her mother-in-law. She has always taken care of the house for her mother-in-law. Perhaps she feels that I'm a threat to her after marrying into the family, so she isn't very friendly to me. However, there's nothing wrong with having a big fold." As she said that, she became angry at Luya. "You lass, why are you talking nonsense? There's no evidence. Who allowed you to talk nonsense? Is that really the case?" Fong was skeptical. After getting Sang Wan's affirmation, she still said angrily, "Even if that's the case, it's too much of a bully. Even if she's your mother-in-law's niece, she's still a relative. Now that you've married into the family, you should be in charge of the house. Why is it still her? Wan Yang, could it be that your mother-in-law has something against you?" "How could that be?" Sang Wan felt a headache coming on. She forced a smile and said softly, "My mother-in-law is very good and treats me very well, really. Sister-in-law, I'm already married, so you don't have to worry about me. I know what I'm doing. Really. But today, eldest brother and sister-in-law came to visit for the first time and made you feel wronged." Fong snorted and said, "It's not that you feel wronged. I hate you so much that the roots of my teeth itch. But it's fine if we feel wronged. At most, we won't come here so often in the future. But you're different. If you are wronged, will you be able to endure it for as long as the heavens and the earth? Other things don't matter, but your mother-in-law is still your mother-in-law. If she wants to make things difficult for you, won't you be able to wear her shoes until she's? My mother-in-law is really very good. Sister-in-law will know when she sees her. Sangwon vowed and joked. Sister-in-law has always had a strong temperament and can't tolerate sand in her eyes. I'm actually a little curious. This servant was so rude, but sister-in-law actually could stand it and didn't make a scene? Feng laughed and stared at Sangwon. Why? Are you disappointed that I didn't make a scene? I'm not afraid of you laughing at me. It's not that I didn't make a scene. If it wasn't for your eldest brother persuading me, and if it wasn't for the fact that I felt that no matter how bad the Sher family is, your son-in-law is still a good person, I would have made a scene long ago. Humph, who asked them to look down on me? Sangwon was scared and angry. If she really made a scene, her mother-in-law would definitely be angry, and she would become a laughingstock in the household. Her eldest brother and sister-in-law really didn't have it easy. Sister-in-law, I'm sorry. It's all Wan Yang's fault for being useless and causing you to be wronged. Sangwon stood up and solemnly bowed to Feng. Ai, don't be like this. Feng hurriedly stood up to support her. Seeing that her eyes were a little wet, Feng's heart also felt sour. She gently patted her hand and said softly, how can this be blamed on you? Ai, it's not easy for you to live in such a big family. Alright, don't be like this, Sister-in-law. Sangwon smiled and secretly said in her heart, one day, she would definitely avenge her eldest brother and sister-in-law. Hee. Feng looked at her carefully and praised. Strange Taoist always said that Buddha needs gold and people need clothes. Look at our Wan Yang dressed like this, really. Hee, beautiful. Really beautiful. At first glance, you can tell that she's the young mistress of a rich family. Luya, don't you think so? Of course. Who doesn't praise our young mistress? Luya smiled proudly. Feng suddenly sighed and shook her head. She said seriously, I still think that Miss Gu Wan Yang, you have to quickly deal with it. Ai, tell me, she's a girl from a relative's family. How can she be so ignorant? Is this family something she can manage? Sangwon secretly held her forehead. Sister-in-law was still as stubborn as ever. Wanting to divert her attention was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Don't worry, sister-in-law, I will. Sangwon's face blushed and suddenly became shy. She lowered her head and said softly, Mother-in-law said, she said to let cousin take care of it for the time being. She wants me to, start a family as soon as possible. Feng was stunned and clapped her hands with a smile. Not bad. That's true. Mother-in-law has thought it through thoroughly. To be honest, Wan Yang, you have to work harder. Everything else is fake. Only when you have a son can you feel at ease. Sangwon's face was as red as a cooked shrimp. On the other side, Shifengju and Sanghong were already enjoying themselves. Thus, Sangwon and Feng went out and sat down in the hall to drink tea. Feng glanced at the sky outside and gave Sanghong a look. Sanghong smiled and said, And may I know when it's convenient to pay a visit to mother-in-law? Shifengju smiled and said, There's no hurry. Big brother, sister-in-law, take a rest first. It must be tiring for you to come all the way here. If it's convenient, let's pay a visit to mother-in-law first. It's not early anymore. We still have to rush home. Feng hurriedly said. Shifengju and Sangwon looked at each other and smiled. Why are you in such a hurry? Big brother, sister-in-law, why don't you stay for a night? It won't be too late to leave tomorrow. I'm afraid it'll be dark by the time you reach home. Yes, sister-in-law, please stay and chat with me. Sangwon also begged. Feng did not have a good impression of the Sher family, and originally refused to stay. Sanghong also did not want to trouble his sister, but Shifengju and Sangwon repeatedly urged him to stay, so he reluctantly agreed. After sitting for a while, Shifengju invited Sanghong to the study room for a chat. Sangwon asked Feng to stay for a private chat, and ordered Luya to bring Sangquan and Sangnuan to the courtyard to play. She also ordered the servants to prepare the guest room. After knowing that Wang had woken up, Sangwon sent someone to the study room to call for her. Shifengju brought his brother, sister-in-law, nephew, and niece to meet her. Mama Li had already told Nanny Jiang to pass on the message to Wang. She only said that the Sang family's granduncle and grandaunt were delayed on the road. Wang did not show any sympathy and did not blame them. Instead, she asked a few questions out of concern. Seeing that Sang Hong was gentle and refined, Fong was also straightforward and efficient. Although her children were a little timid, they were also very cute. Wang was satisfied and secretly nodded her head. Scholars are indeed different from ordinary people. Sang Hong and his wife saw that Wang was amiable and polite. Other than dressing a little more extravagantly, she was no different from an ordinary old lady. Thus, they were relieved and felt that Sang Wan would not be mistreated. After breakfast the next day, Sang Hong and his wife brought their children back home. Shi Fengjiu originally wanted to send a carriage to send them back, but Sang Hong insisted that it would be too troublesome, and that he could just hire a carriage himself. Shi Fengjiu could only give up. He ordered Chang Huan to help hire a carriage and personally sent them out of the city. This family is not bad. Although they are rich, they have never grown their eyes on top of their heads. Fong said with a smile in the carriage. Sang Hong smiled and said, "How was it? I said that yesterday was a misunderstanding, right? Fortunately, I stopped you. Otherwise, if things got out, how would Wan Yang be able to face others?" Fong was embarrassed, but she was not convinced. She snorted and said, "How can they blame me for being angry? That bunch of dogs who look down on others. They are even worse than us. I really don't know what they are so arrogant about." Sang Hong sighed and said, "Even the fingers on a hand have different lengths. With such a large family business, there are almost 100 people. How can I guarantee that everyone will be fine? In the future, don't be rash when you meet with trouble." "Oh right." Fong suddenly remembered and said, "Luya said that yesterday's incident was most likely done by that Miss Gu Fangzi. That Miss Gu Fangzi is currently in charge of the Shi family's inner residence. She doesn't look like a good person to me." "Luya?" Sang Hong frowned. "How did Luya know? Did you tell Wan Yang? Didn't I tell you not to say anything? Why do you have to do this?" Fong was stunned and defended herself. "Why can't I say anything? Think about it. If that Gu Fangzi really wants to make things difficult for Wan Yang, we can tell Wan Yang so that Wan Yang will know what to do, right? Otherwise, Wan Yang will still be in the dark about being schemed against." Chapter 47. Sang Hong was speechless for a moment and sighed. "What you said makes sense. But no matter what, this is the Shi family's matter. If we get involved, it won't be good for Wan Yang." "Who likes to get involved?" Fong sneered. "But I want to remind Wan Yang. Let me ask you, if the Shi family bullies Wan Yang in the future, will you do something about it?" "Of course I will," Sang Hong said firmly. "That's my sister. But brother-in-law is a good person and won't let Wan Yang suffer." Fong sneered and said slowly, "That's hard to say." Sang Hong couldn't help but stare at her strangely. "I say, why are you speaking in such a strange tone? Do you have something to say?" "For now I don't. Hopefully, there won't be in the future." Fong rolled her eyes at him. A woman's heart was sensitive. Moreover, Fong sure was not stupid. Recalling the conversation between Luya and Sang Wan yesterday, as well as her observation of Gu Fangzi during dinner last night, even though it was not convenient for her to ask the Shi family's servants about anything, Fong Shi's heart was already faintly suspicious. However, since Sang Wan was unwilling to say, she could not force her. After all, her sister-in-law was not her mother. Furthermore, the Shi family had not done anything overboard. She would not be so foolish as to expose this layer of window paper and give them a chance to push the boat along with the current. "AI," Sang Hong could not help but laugh. "Why do these words sound so mysterious? Why, are you meditating?" Fong snorted and glanced at him. "Yes, I'm not allowed to?" Sang Hong laughed and shook his head, ignoring her. "Just keep laughing. When you see second uncle and second aunt later, you won't be able to laugh anymore." Fong said slowly. As expected, Sang Hong's face stiffened. He rubbed his forehead as if he had a headache. On the other hand, second old Master Sang and Li Li were anxiously waiting for Sang Hong and Fong to arrive even when the sky turned dark. The two of them could not help but fly into a rage and scold the two of them for being heartless and evil. He was certain that they had abandoned the three of them and returned to Sai village. Left with no choice, he could only stay the night at a farmer's house. At dawn the next day, the two of them hurriedly left with Sang Yan. They wanted to rush home and give Sang Hong and Fong a good scolding. They also wanted to see how many things the couple had brought back, and whether they had kept anything for themselves. After much persuasion, the two of them hired an ox cart and set off on their way back to Willowtown. Thinking that she had to pay for the car, Li felt so distressed that she scolded Sang Hong and Fong. Thus, when Sang Hong and Fong called for the carriage to turn into a nearby house to pick them up, they were told that they had already left. The two of them smiled bitterly at each other, knowing that they must have misunderstood. The ox cart creaked as it moved at an extremely slow pace. Second Old Master Sang and Li were so anxious that they could not do anything about it. Just as they were about to reach Willowtown, Sang Hong's carriage finally caught up. Sang Hong quickly called for the carriage to stop and waved his hand. Second uncle, second aunt, Second Old Master Sang and Li were stunned. Their eyes widened as they did not regain their senses for a long time. Why are you all here? Li Shi jumped off the ox cart and angrily rushed over to Sang Hong while pointing at him. Preposterous. Second Old Master Sang also sneered. You two went to have fun and made us wait. That's right. Since you're here for the night, why didn't you send a carriage to pick us up? Li glared. Of course, Sang Hong did not dare to say that he had deliberately left them behind, so he could only smile and say some nice words. I say, second uncle and second aunt, have you two had lunch? Are you hungry? Fong asked with a smile. With that question, Second Old Master Sang and Li felt their stomachs burning with hunger, and could not help but swallow their saliva. You still have the cheek to ask. Second Old Master Sang snorted. We haven't even had breakfast and it's all because of you two. Let's go, we'll eat in town before going back. Second Old Master Sang swung his sleeves and climbed into the carriage. Li pulled Sang Yan up as well. Second Old Master Sang and his wife were furious. They entered the town's best restaurant and ordered a table full of good dishes before they felt better. After eating and drinking to their fill, the anger of the two was almost appeased. Li asked the waiter to pack up the leftover chicken, duck, and fish. Finally, a smile appeared on her face. Having rested enough, the two of them kept asking about Sang Hong and his wife's situation in the Shi household. When they reached home, the two of them stared at Sang Hong and his wife as they took down the Shi family's gifts one by one. That's all? Second Old Master Sang and Li were in disbelief. The list is here. Fong did not say anything and directly handed the red list over. Second Old Master Sang received it, and could not wait to take a closer look. Seeing that there was no difference, he was a little disappointed and asked again. Then, did Wan Yang give you any extra money? Second Old Master Sang was only interested in gold and silver. According to the rules, shouldn't the gifts be like this? The Shi family's money is not Wan Yang's money. How can Wan Yang make the decision? Fong said lightly. Second Old Master Sang snorted and declined to comment. Although the two of them were skeptical, they could not search Sang Hong and Fong's bodies and could only give up. Li Shi glanced at the Sang siblings, Sang Quan and Sang Nuan. Deep down, she was thinking of finding an opportunity to get some information from these two brats. It was always easier to get information from children. Don't let me find out, otherwise, I'll teach these two a lesson. That, you went to the Shi household and we didn't, so these things should belong to us. However, we're not unreasonable people. How about this? We'll leave these 4 boxes of rice dumplings for you and take the rest with us. Li said as she took action. The pouch was in her bosom, the brocade was under her armpit, the tea canister was in her arms, 2 chickens in one hand and 2 fishes in the other. She pouted at Second Old Master Sang. Old Master, quickly carry the wine. Anyway, De Lang doesn't drink, right? Sang Hong and Fong looked at each other. Fong's face showed that she was not worried. Sang Hong quickly nudged her and nodded with a smile. Second uncle, second aunt, just take it. Ai, that's more like it. Li was satisfied and carried the things back and forth with Second Old Master Sang. On the second trip, Li glanced at the 4 boxes of rice dumplings and said, I wonder how the Sher family's rice dumplings taste. I'll take one to try. As she said that, she opened the seal and picked up 8. I won't take more, 2 for each of us. Feng only sneered and did not say anything. Seeing that Feng did not object, Li could not help but feel a little regretful. She felt that she should have taken a few more just now. After hesitating for a while, she did not dare to extend her hand and left with an embarrassed smile. Sang Ro was secretly happy when she heard that her parents and younger sister did not go to Qingzhou. With a faint smile on her face, she looked at the gifts that her parents brought back from the central room. Li Sher saw Sang Ro's pair of greedy eyes darting around, and her anger flared up. She pointed at Sang Ro and scolded. Look, what are you looking at? Your father suffered during the journey and his stomach is not feeling well. You don't care about anything at home. Quickly go boil some water and make some tea. What are you looking at? I've raised you for nothing. Second old Master Sang thought of how his youngest daughter would rather not go to Qingzhou to see the world and stay behind to accompany and take care of him. Even after being scolded by her mother, she still wanted to stay behind. Compared to his eldest daughter, who only knew how to stare at the things and was probably scheming something in her heart, not caring about her father at all. His face turned cold as he glared at Sang Ro and scolded. Why aren't you going? What are you standing there for? Sang Ro bit her lip and turned to leave. Oh, look at that. She got angry when I scolded her. She's grown up and her heart has grown bigger, and her temper isn't small. In another 2 years, she would dare to talk back. Li said in a strange tone. No matter how old she is, she's still my daughter. She can't go against her. If she dares to throw a tantrum, I'll break her legs. Second old Master Sang said with a sullen face. Sang Ro was so angry that her breathing quickened and her body trembled. Her lips moved as she cursed silently while she went to the stove to start the fire. She placed the blackened kettle on top and poured a ladle of water into it. Her heart was filled with hatred, and she spat a mouthful of saliva into the kettle. With a pung sound, she closed the lid and scolded. Drink until you die. Shi Fengju found Gu Fengzi and asked calmly. Yesterday's matter, were you the one who did it? What is it? The smile on Gu Fengzi's face suddenly disappeared. Why were the Sang family's first young master and first young mistress brought to the side hall where the servants were waiting? Why didn't anyone inform them? Gu Fengzi sneered. Is Big Cousin here to denounce me? If not for Cousin Sang Ro's matter, Big Cousin wouldn't have thought of visiting me, right? Were you the one who did it? No. Gu Fengzi said angrily. Who said it was me? Was it Cousin Sang Ro? What did she instigate in front of Big Cousin this time? If you have the ability, ask her to come and confront me face to face. What's the point of talking behind someone's back? Shi Fengju's face darkened. Looking at the somewhat sinister face in front of him, he felt a little dazed. Was this the person he loved deeply? Was she his childhood sweetheart, his cousin? I'm not a fool, Shi Fengju said word by word. There are some things that cannot be confirmed without evidence. Besides, Wan Yang did not say anything to me. Gu Fengzi bit her lip and did not say anything. Of course, she knew that no matter what happened in the household, as long as Shi Fengju wanted to know, there was no way to hide it from him. So she didn't say anything. Gu Fengzi sneered. So it was Big Cousin who took the initiative to stand up for her. So it was really you who did it? Why? Shi Fengju sighed. Have you thought about it? If this matter were to blow up, it would also affect our Shi family's reputation. Big Cousin did it for the Shi family's reputation? Not to stand up for Cousin Sang Ro? Gu Fengzi's eyes were burning. Shi Fengju did not dare to face Gu Fengzi's gaze. After a moment of blankness, he said, You still haven't told me why you did it. Gu Fengzi was burning with jealousy and said hatefully, You haven't answered me either. Cousin, why are you asking me this? Is it really just for the Shi family's reputation? If it's just for the Shi family's reputation, you can rest assured because no one would dare to gossip outside. You did it on purpose? Yes. Gu Fengzi snorted. I did it on purpose. I just wanted you and Aunt to see, and let everyone in the Shi family to see, that their family is not compatible with the Shi family. Sangwon is not worthy of you, big cousin. She's not worthy of being your wife. Your wife should be me. Shi Fengju subconsciously thought of Gu Fangzi's family background and her parents. He forced himself to stop thinking about it and said in a low voice, "In the end, you still don't believe me, right?" Chapter 48. Gu Fangzi was silent. Shi Fengju felt a chill in his heart, and an unspeakable disappointment filled his heart. You still don't believe me? That's because I can't trust you at all after what you've done. Gu Fangzi's eyes were filled with tears. She stared at Shi Fengju and said, "Do you like her? Touch your conscience and tell me. Have you started to like her? Do you think I'm being unreasonable? Do you think I'm sinister and despicable? Tell me." Shi Fengju didn't say anything, and his eyes became calm. I hope that this kind of thing won't happen again. I don't want the Fong. Or I like to be that kind of person. Shi Fengju finished speaking and turned to leave. Big cousin. Gu Fangzi panicked for no reason. She ran forward and tightly hugged Shi Fengju from behind. She pressed her cheek against his back and sobbed. I'm sorry. Big cousin, it's my fault. Don't be angry. Don't ignore me. Big cousin, I'm doing this because I'm worried about you. I'm afraid you won't want me. I'm really scared. Big cousin, I can't live without you. Big cousin. Shi Fengju's body stiffened, and he sighed. Promise me you won't do this again? Yes. I promise. I won't do it again. Gu Fangzi desperately nodded. Shi Fengju's lips hooked up, and he turned around and gently patted her back. Fonger, trust me. Yes, then, you have to promise that you won't have a change of heart. Gu Fangzi hugged him tightly, and leaned into his embrace. I promise. Shi Fengju was absent-minded for a moment, but he still gently nodded. Gu Fangzi's tears turned into a smile, and she softly said, Big cousin will be leaving the day after tomorrow. I personally made 2 sets of clothes for you. Big cousin, you can't laugh at my bad handiwork. Really? Clothes for me? Shi Fengju could not help but laugh. When did you become so virtuous? Ever since he was young, Gu Fangzi disliked working as a maid. She had never made him a belt, shoes or socks, let alone clothes. The sachet was embroidered many years ago. Gu Fangzi glared at him and said half-jokingly, Could it be that only your eldest young mistress is virtuous and I'm not allowed to be virtuous? Shi Fengju's eyes dimmed as he forced a smile. Gu Fangzi nagged. You'd better stay away from those indecent people out there. Don't learn bad things from them. You're not allowed to visit brothels, and you're not allowed to make friends with women outside. If you come back and let me see any clues, I won't forgive you. How could that be? How am I that kind of person? Shi Fengju smiled patiently. That's hard to say. That's why I have to remind you. Gu Fangzi said angrily. Sangwon was almost done packing up the luggage. Sleeping clothes, underwear, outerwear, cloak, shoes, socks, belts, towels, and so on were all packed into different categories. There were also towels, scented candles, toiletries, pouches, pancakes, tea leaves, nail clippers, thumb rings, and all kinds of other things. She smiled and explained to Shi Fengju. There's a list in the boxes, so it's easy to find them. Tomorrow, Mama will ask someone to carry them out and give them to Chang Huan. If there's anything he can't think of, he can only ask Chang Huan to buy it on the spot. Chang Huan and the others may not think of everything and serve you well. When the time comes, you'll have to remind them. Otherwise, they'll be happy to be lazy. She nagged for a long time. Shi Fengju felt a wave of warmth in his heart, but he couldn't help but feel conflicted. He reluctantly said, Actually, these things can be done by the maidservants. You really don't have to do it yourself. After all, it's enough to have the maidservants do it. Sangwon's face was slightly pale. She forced a smile and said, Look at what you're saying. Thank you for accompanying my brother yesterday. Consider it as me returning the favor. Shi Fengju knew that she had started packing up a few days ago. When he heard her words, he secretly regretted saying that. Sangwon continued, Besides, this is what Mother told me. It's not good for me to not listen. Besides, Mama Li is here. In other words, she was doing it for others to see. Shi Fengju smiled. His smile was very forced. He didn't know why, but when he heard her say that, he felt a little disappointed. By the way, Sangwon tidied her hair and came over with a small rectangular wooden box. This is a medicine box. There are gauze chili powder, biao powder, zhuge powder, sahexiang pills, shixiang rejuvenation pills, huaxiang pills, pipachingxin ointment, white tiger oil, and other commonly used medicinal powders and pills. This medicine box is also specially made to be waterproof and sunscreen. You should keep it well in case you need it. Of course, that's just a suggestion. It's best if you don't need it. Thank you for being so thoughtful. Shifengju smiled and took it. Sangwon smiled and shook her head. There's no need to say these things between us. Shifengju nodded and said, In. After thinking for a while, he finally said, I may not be back until the 15th of August. During the 3 months that I'm not here, you should take care of yourself. If you encounter any problems, you should discuss it with Mama Lee. She understands everything. Also, help me take good care of Mother. If you feel wronged, Shifengju looked at her and said, Bear with it for a while. We'll talk when I'm back. Sangwon said, I thought you didn't know. So you do. When you're not in the Fu, who knows what your cousin will do? Okay, then I'll wait for you to come back and help me. Sangwon smiled. Shifengju couldn't help but smile as well. The next day, the whole family had a meal together. Second young mistress sure had not come to visit Sangwon for a long time. It was said that she was not feeling well and had been sick for a few days. When they saw each other today, they couldn't help but exchange greetings. On the morning of the 8th day of the 5th month, Wang brought Shifengju, Sangwon, and Gu Fangzi to the ancestral tablets. They offered incense and kowtowed to the ancestral tablets. They placed a whole chicken, whole fish, and square meat on the table, and prayed to the ancestors to bless Shifengju for a safe journey. She then led them into the temple hall to offer incense and water and rice. After mumbling a few words, she held Shifengju's hand and sent him out of the Fu. The Shi family was originally a family of merchants. Every year, Shifengju would have to travel far and near. Wang said that she was worried, but she was also used to it. When they parted, she didn't cry or look sad. Overall, the atmosphere was quite good. Gu Fangzi suddenly got onto Shifengju's carriage in front of everyone and smiled at Wang. Aunt, I want to send big cousin off at the pier. Everyone was stunned, including Shifengju himself. Shifengju subconsciously glanced at Sangwon. Seeing her forcing herself to be reserved, he couldn't help but feel pain in his heart. But Gu Fangzi had already gotten on the carriage and said so. He couldn't just chase her off. The housekeepers and servants were also stunned. A strange look flashed across their eyes. Those who weren't as calm had their eyes lit up as they looked excitedly at their young mistress's expression. Mama Lee was even more furious. With a cold face, she secretly rolled her eyes at Gu Fangzi. When others looked at Sangwon, they would still try to conceal their intentions. Wang Shi, on the other hand, turned her head to look at Sangwon with a look of inquiry in her eyes. Sangwon was embarrassed and tried her best to hold back her tears. All right, Mother, Wanyang, you can all go back. I'll have someone send cousin back later. Wanyang, take care. Help me take good care of Mother. Shifengju coughed and forced a smile. Sangwon saw that he still knew how to protect her face, and even knew how to say a few words to her in front of everyone. Her embarrassment was gone, and she gazed at him gently before nodding and smiling. Husband, don't worry. I will. Mother and I will wait for you to come back soon. Yes. Everything will go smoothly and safely, and come back soon. Wang Shi said with a smile. Shifengju nodded and ordered the carriage to leave. After Gu Fangzi returned home, her face did not look too good. She glared at the direction of Ning Garden with resentment and jealousy before returning to Peony Park. Should she really believe in Big Cousin? How trustworthy could a man's promise be? Gu Fangzi fell into an unprecedented dilemma. Soon, something happened that made her change her mind. She decided to end this quickly and not wait any longer. 2 days after Shifengju left home, Gu Fangzi's father, Gu Jin, came looking for the Shi family. When Gu Fangzi heard the servant's report, her face immediately darkened. She ordered the servants to bring him to a secluded hall in the outer courtyard to wait. She cursed under her breath before wrapping a few pieces of silver in her handkerchief and sneaking out to meet him. Before she even got close, she heard her father shouting at the top of his voice. Your Sher family is too stingy. You can't even bear to give me a jug of wine? Do you know who I am? I am the father of your cousin, Gu Fengzi, her biological father. I don't drink tea. Bring me a jug of wine, bring me a jug of wine. What a disgrace. Gu Fengzi was embarrassed and angry. She rushed over and glared at the servant to leave. She frowned and said, Father, what are you shouting for? Why, you think I'm embarrassing? Even if you think I'm embarrassing, you're still my daughter. I'm a member of the Gu family. Gu Jin grinned, revealing his big yellow teeth. Gu Fengzi did not like to hear those words the most. Hearing those words stung her heart, but she could only bear with it and patiently asked, Why are you here? What's the matter? Oh, Gu Jin looked at her and laughed. Is this how you talk to your father? As if I'm an outsider and this is your home. I say, daughter, don't be so quick to deny it. Your surname isn't Sher yet. I haven't seen any betrothal gifts from the Sher family. Father. Gu Fengzi stomped her feet and said coldly, Don't blame me for ignoring you if you continue to say such nonsense. I don't. Gu Jin chuckled. Don't you know why I'm looking for you? Gu Fengzi's face was cold. She took out a few taels of silver and stuffed it into Gu Jin's hands. That's all, take it. Gu Jin waited and sneered. I say, Feng, aren't you being too heartless? You're living a luxurious life in the Sher family, eating delicacies and wearing silk and satin. You're only giving your father this bit of filial piety? Do you think I'm a beggar? Gu Fengzi sneered. Father, the Sher family belongs to the Sher family. Your daughter is already embarrassed for freeloading in the Sher family. How can I ask them for money to show filial piety to you? I only have these few taels and they were saved by me. Take it or leave it. Gu Jin ignored the sarcasm in his daughter's words and rolled his eyes. That's true. You're not a member of the Sher family yet. It's not good for you to be freeloading here. Since that's the case, follow me back. Let's go, we'll go back now. You can come back when the Sher family brings the betrothal gifts to the betrothal ceremony, and bring the red bridal sedan to our house. With that, Gu Jin grabbed Gu Fengzi's arm and dragged her away. Chapter 49. What are you doing? Gu Fengzi cried as she snatched his hand away. You can't bear to see me doing well. Can't bear to see me doing well. Are you trying to get me killed? I'm still relying on you to support me in my old age. How can I bear to harm you? Gu Jin sneered. You're my daughter. Isn't it natural for you to come home with me? No matter what, the Sher family can't hold on to my daughter and not let her go, right? Humph, they want to take my beautiful daughter without any betrothal gifts, dream on. As he said that, he spat on the ground. Profiteer. Gu Fengzi was so angry that her lips trembled, and she could no longer speak. I won't go with you, Gu Fengzi said hatefully. If you want to leave, leave by yourself. I know, it's that old hag from the Sher family who won't let her go, right? I'll go and reason with her. Gu Jin shouted. The Sher family is holding on to my daughter and not letting her go. What is the meaning of this? If they don't give me an explanation today, I won't leave. Father. Father. Gu Fengzi panicked and pulled at Gu Jin with all her might. Gu Jin was afraid of Sher Fengju from the Sher family. Sher Fengju may look gentle and refined, but he had never given him the cold shoulder, nor scolded him wantonly. Yet, such a person was able to turn him into a pot of boiling dumplings without batting an eyelid. There was no way he could complain about his bitterness. So all these years, as long as Sher Fengju was at home, he didn't dare to cause trouble in the Sher family. Even if he did, he would secretly meet Gu Fengzi and quietly ask for some wine money. Look, Sher Fengju had just left for a long time, and now he was here. And of course, he was here to do something big. Why are you pulling me? Damn brat, you're siding with an outsider, treating my good intentions as ill intent. Do you think the Sher family really values you? If they do, why did Sher Fengju marry someone from the Sang family and not you? He's trying to deceive you, my silly daughter. If it wasn't me, your father, who else would make decisions for you? If the Shi family doesn't give me a definite answer today, I won't leave. Don't say any more. Father, don't say any more. Gu Fangzi choked with tears. This matter was like a thorn in her heart, and she would bleed if she touched it. Normally, she wouldn't even think about it, so how could she stand Gu Jin's words? What are you afraid? Go. Go find that old hag. Our Gu family may not be as big as the Shi family, but we're not easy to bully. I'm going to demand an explanation today. As the father and daughter argued, the servants saw that things were not going well, and were afraid that they would be implicated and reported it to Wang Shi. Hearing Gu Jin idled about, and was addicted to alcohol. Once he started drinking, he would not stop until he was dead drunk. 2. Quickly ask him to come in. Wang sighed. When her son left, she knew that Gu Jin would definitely come and cause a ruckus. She just didn't expect him to come so quickly this time. He must be really short on money. This was what Wang Shi thought. Aunt. Upon seeing Wang, Gu Fangzi's tears rolled down like a broken string of pearls. She threw herself into Wang's embrace and cried. It's all Fangzi's fault. I've caused trouble for Aunt again. It's all Fangzi's fault. Gu Jin sat down carelessly and rudely raised his sleeve to wipe his face. Seeing this, the corners of his mouth twitched in disdain. He rolled his eyes and shouted at the maidservant beside him. Where's the tea? Is this how your Shi family treats their guests? Wang Shi saw that Gu Fangzi's hair was loose, and her clothes were wrinkled. The sweet and delicate young lady was crying like a baby, and her heart ached for her. She was comforting Gu Fangzi, but when she heard what Gu Fangzi said, she glared fiercely at Gu Jin before gesturing to the maidservant. Serve him some tea. Wang helped Gu Fangzi fix her hair and wipe her tears. She pulled her to sit down and said coldly to Gu Jin, "What are you doing here again? Isn't it enough that you killed my sister? You can't even bear to see my niece live a peaceful life?" Gu Jin raised his head and drank the tea in one gulp. He put the cup on the table and nodded at the empty cup. The servant could only fill it up for him. Gu Jin picked it up and drank it in one gulp. After drinking 3 big bowls, he sighed in satisfaction and wiped his mouth. He smiled at Wang Shi and said, "Sister." "Who's your sister?" Wang reprimanded. Gu Jin chuckled and did not take it to heart. He continued, "Your sister was ill-fated and didn't die because of me. She's my only kin now, so why wouldn't I want her to be well? Sister. Kiki, old Mistress Shi, I'm here today because I have something important to discuss with you." Enough. Wang raised her hand impatiently and said, "You still know that Fangzi is your daughter. Don't make her sad from time to time. Nanny Jiang, give me 100 silvers. Wait. Gu Jin stopped. Why? You think it's too little? Nanny Jiang, give me another 100 silvers. Take the money and leave quickly. Wang sneered with unspeakable disgust. I'm not here for money, Gu Jin laughed strangely. I'm here to bring my daughter home. What did you say? Wang was shocked and Gu Fangzi's face turned pale. Fangzi's surname is Gu and she's my daughter. Old Mistress Shi, you wouldn't deny that, right? I'm here to bring my daughter home. What's wrong with that? Gu Jin said casually. Wang's face turned gloomy. She dismissed the servants and said coldly, Just say it, what do you want? It's what you want. Gu Jin stretched his neck and snorted. Keeping my daughter in the Shi family for no reason. If word gets out, the Gu family will lose all face. You. Wang Shi was so angry that she couldn't breathe properly. Keeping her in the Shi family for no reason? And the Gu family's face. Does the Gu family still have any face left? This scoundrel. Gu Fangzi was so embarrassed that her face turned red. She felt extremely humiliated to have such a father, and wished she could find a hole to hide in. Did I say something wrong? Gu Jin waved his arm and said agitatedly, I didn't say anything when Fangzi was staying in your house. I thought that since she would be part of the Shi family in the future, it wouldn't matter if she entered the Shi family earlier or later. But young Master Shi has already married the Sang family's lass, so what's the point of my daughter staying here? To make a fool of herself. Your Shi family didn't even say a word, so there's no way you can be muddle-headed. Today, let's talk about this thoroughly. Father. Gu Fangzi's tears rolled down again. She quickly wiped them away and gently tugged at Wang's sleeve with a pleading look. Although Gu Fangzi's heart was filled with resentment towards her father, even though his words were unpleasant to hear, they were what Gu Fangzi was concerned about. That's right, the Shi family should tell her the truth. What she wanted was a real guarantee. Not Shi Fengju's, believe me. I won't let you down. Believe? The most worthless and laughable word in the world was that word. Especially when it came from a man's mouth. Even if it came from Big Cousin's mouth, the credibility would still be reduced. Wang was speechless for a moment. Her face turned green and white from anger. She was so angry that she almost wanted Gu Jin to take Gu Fangzi away. So the Shi family pitted an orphan and helped a scoundrel, but it was wrong. Not only did they not get a good word out of spending money, they even had to suffer from this inverted black and white slander. But when she saw Gu Fangzi's pitiful look and thought of how obedient she had been all these years, Wang's heart softened and she had no choice but to swallow her anger. We will give Fangzi an explanation. Who doesn't know how to make empty promises? Gu Jin pushed his luck and continued. Unless you divorce the Sang family's lass and invite Fangzi into the family, then I'll believe you. Outrageous. Wang was furious. My daughter-in-law is virtuous and elegant. How can we abandon her? Then what do you want? Gu Jin sneered. Wang Shi snorted and looked away. She calmly said, It's not like you don't know about the engagement between the Shi and Sang families. Why did you only think of bringing your daughter home now? Ah. Gu Jin rolled his eyes and said, Then let's be frank. Doesn't your Shi family want my Fangzi to be your concubine? She's a concubine. Even though she had already agreed with Gu Fangzi, she had never mentioned it openly. Now that she said it out loud, Wang felt a little embarrassed and felt a little sorry for Gu Fangzi. She quickly said, After she marries into the family and gives birth to a son, she'll be promoted as a second wife and wear a red dress. Our Shi family will definitely not treat Fangzi unfairly. That's good. Gu Jin clapped his hands and said, We're relatives, so I trust you. Since that's the case, then let's settle this. My daughter isn't young anymore. We can't keep waiting like this. Scoundrel. Wang scolded him in her heart. Her daughter-in-law had just married into the family for less than 2 months, and now she was taking in a concubine with great fanfare. Furthermore, the concubine was Miss Gu, who grew up in the household. Not only would the new daughter-in-law lose face, but the Shi family would also be criticized by outsiders for being unkind. Even if she doesn't marry into the family now, it's fine to give the betrothal gift first. Gu Jin quickly added. That was the main point. Betrothal gift? Wang's mouth twitched. She had never heard of a betrothal gift being given when taking in a concubine. The Shi family was a reputable family, so they had to follow the rules. We'll talk about this when Fengju returns. I'm just a woman, so I can't make this decision. Wang thought about it and decided to drag it out. I have 500 silvers here. Take it back and use it first. Gu Jin was satisfied and he grinned. All right. Then we'll do as you say. Mistress Shi sure is straightforward. Gu Jin was very pleased with himself. He hoped that Wang would not agree to Gu Fangzi's marriage so easily in the future. That way, he would have more reason to extort her. If his daughter were to become someone else's, it would be difficult to get money from them so easily. Aunt Wang, I'm sorry. Gu Fangzi did not expect Wang to refuse. She could not help but be secretly disappointed, but her expression was full of guilt. Wang gently patted the back of her hand and said softly, Don't worry, Aunt Wang will make the decision for you. Gu Fangzi lowered her head in gratitude, but her palms were tightly clenched. She could not help but think. One said, Trust me, while the other said, I'll make the decision for you. They were indeed mother and son. Chapter 50. Lass, aren't you going to send your father off? Gu Jin received the banknotes from Nanny Jiang and counted them before grinning at Gu Fangzi. Go. Send him out. Wang waved her hand tiredly. Gu Fangzi agreed softly and glared at Gu Jin with resentment before leading him out. At the Shi family's gate, Gu Jin once again begged his daughter for the few pieces of silver she took out earlier, claiming that he had not eaten lunch and did not have the money to hire a carriage home. Seeing that Gu Fangzi was not paying attention, he pulled out the golden hairpin on her head and forcefully removed the jade bracelet on her wrist, saying, "The Shi family has plenty of money. Ask Shi Fengjiu to buy you a new one." Gu Fangzi was so angry that her body trembled, but she could only bear with it and watch as he swaggered away while humming a tune. Fortunately, she had the foresight to see that he had changed out all the valuable jewelry before. "What should we do? I don't think we can drag this matter on any longer." Wang frowned and sighed. It was not that Gu Jin had not pestered her in the past, but this was the first time he said such words. She did not know if it was because he was enlightened or because he received advice from someone else. In short, his appetite was getting bigger and bigger. In the past, he could get away with a few dozen or 100 silvers. Now that he wanted 500 silvers, who knows how much he would ask for next time? If she did not give it to him, he would insist on taking Gu Fangzi away, and she would not be able to stop him. After all, they were father and daughter. He would win even if the case was brought to the authorities. But if she did not do anything, she could not bear to see Gu Fangzi go back and suffer. That won't be easy. In any case, Miss Gu and young master will be together sooner or later. Let's just take her into the family. As the saying goes, a married daughter is like spilled water. The in-laws will not raise their in-laws for nothing. No matter how much trouble he makes, there will be a limit to it. Nanny Jiang could tell what Wang Shi was thinking, so she smiled and said. But, Wang said awkwardly, the new daughter-in-law has only been married for less than 2 months. Wan Yang isn't a bad child. To be honest, I do care for her a little. I don't want her to suffer any grievances. Also, the Sang family is a scholarly family. How could they let this go? It's all boss's fault. Wang snorted and vented her anger on Shi Fengjiu. If not for him being dissatisfied with the marriage agreement with the Sang family, and had been trying to delay the marriage all these years, wouldn't Sang Wan and Fangzi be able to marry into the family earlier? Then today's incident wouldn't have happened. From the old slave's point of view, the crux of this matter lies with young mistress. Nanny Jiang smiled. Seeing that Wang was listening attentively, Nanny Jiang continued. If young mistress decides to take a concubine for young master, then it's young mistress's virtue. No one can say anything about it, not even the Sang family. Just listen to what you're saying. Will Wan Yang be willing? Wang rolled her eyes at Nanny Jiang. Unless she's a fool. Kiki, Nanny Jiang smiled and said. The daughter-in-law has to listen to her mother-in-law. Hasn't it always been like this since ancient times? Wang was startled and her face stiffened. That's right, if she had hinted at it, Sang Wan would have no chance of objecting. But when she thought of Sang Wan's gentle and quiet smile and her respectful and virtuous words and deeds, Wang could not help but feel pity for her. She sighed and said, That's not wrong, but this is too unfair to Wan Yang. I can see that Fengjiu actually likes her. They have a good relationship, and their family is harmonious. My life is also comfortable. If there's a thorn in her heart, and they don't get along well in the future, the family will be in chaos. Wouldn't that be my fault? Nanny Jiang remained silent. Wang did not hear her speak for a long time. She turned her head and scolded with a smile. What else do you have to say? Say it all in one go. Nanny Jiang smiled and said, To say something unpleasant, which daughter-in-law doesn't get angry at her mother-in-law? How many are as magnanimous as old mistress? Now that young mistress has a mother-in-law like you, she doesn't need to wake up early to greet you. She doesn't need to serve you all day long. She doesn't need to cook or do anything. She only needs to care about comfortable clothes and food, wear embroidered clothes, wear gold and silver, and have servants to serve and flatter her. She can do whatever she wants. Even if she sleeps in the house for an entire afternoon, no one will say a word. If this is called being wronged, then the old slave did not know what is not. In any case, Miss Gu will definitely marry into the family, and young mistress must be aware of it. If you let young mistress do this favor, Miss Gu will definitely be grateful to her in the future. Wouldn't the two of them get along better? Moreover, if you feel that young mistress has been wronged, can't you just treat her better? If young mistress only cares about herself and not you, young master, and this family, then she's not really virtuous but a fake one. Old slave has spoken too much, and the old slave shouldn't have badmouthed master. After Nanny Jiang finished speaking, she quickly took a step back and bowed to ask for forgiveness. Quickly get up. Wang smiled and said, behind closed doors, we can talk about anything. You're right, let's do it this way. But this matter still needs to be decided when Fengji returns. I'll let Wan Yang know about it first. Old mistress has thought it through thoroughly, Nanny Jiang quickly added. At that moment, a servant came to report. The Zhuang family has sent an invitation. Hearing the two words Zhuang family, old mistress Wang panicked. When she heard that it was a servant who sent the invitation and not old mistress Zhuang, she heaved a sigh of relief and patted her chest lightly. That silly lass, so flustered. Fortunately. She thought that old mistress Zhuang knew that Gu Jin had come to pester her, and specially came to make fun of her. But then again, how could old mistress Zhuang be so well informed? Seeing that she was scaring herself, she could not help but laugh. After the servant paid his respects, he handed over the invitation. It was about old mistress Zhuang hosting a banquet 3 days later, and inviting her to the banquet. Wang did not hesitate and agreed. I heard that Madame Zhuang's maternal sister-in-law has brought along the daughter of her maternal sister-in-law's relative. I heard that she is a talented girl. Is that true? Wang Shi put down the invitation and asked casually. It seems so. Nanny Jiang nodded and said disapprovingly. I don't know how many relatives she has brought along, but I heard that old mistress Zhuang even called her niece. I think she's most likely referring to the Zhuang family's eldest son. TSK, what talented girl. In my opinion, she's definitely not as good as our family's young mistress. I think so too. Wang's fighting spirit suddenly rose and she said, send someone to invite Wan Yang over. Whether or not her daughter-in-law was truly talented, she believed that the result would be clear soon. If she were to lose to that lousy relative of the Zhuang family, he would have more confidence in bringing up the matter of Gu Fengzi entering the family. If she were to win, he would praise and comfort her, and treat her even better. Wang made up her mind and said to Nanny Jiang, don't tell young mistress about what we discussed just now. We'll talk about it when we return from the banquet. Nanny Jiang found it funny in her heart, but her mouth also smiled and she quickly said, how would this old slave dare to talk about master's matters? Other than you, who else would have the right to talk about it? Wang thought about it and nodded with a smile. It just so happened that the two concubines of the second Shi family were fighting, and the atmosphere in the courtyard was foul. According to second old mistress Shi's temperament, she would definitely vent her anger on second Shi family's young mistress. Second Shi family's young mistress secretly slipped away, and ran over to Sangwan's place to lie low for a while. The two sisters-in-law were discussing how to instruct the maidservants to draw the flowers on the Kong bed, while munching on melon seeds and snacks. Hearing that Wang wanted to see her, Sangwan patted her sleeves and got up. She grabbed a handful of melon seeds and sweets and gave them to the servant, asking, is there a guest? The servant quickly thanked her and smiled. No, it's someone from the Zhuang family who sent an invitation. It seems like they want to invite old mistress to the banquet, so old mistress asked this servant to invite young mistress over. I understand. Sangwan smiled and nodded. I'll change my clothes and come over. Wang Shi liked to see people dressed up to the nines. Her family's usual pinewood-colored clothes were too plain, so it was better to change into something else. Sangwan looked toward second Shi family's young mistress and she quickly smiled. Since first aunt has invited you, eldest sister-in-law, please go ahead. I'll stay here and watch the maidservants draw these 2 flowers before going back. Even though the host was not around, the guests should tactfully leave. However, second Shi family's young mistress really did not want to get involved in that mess. At the very least, she wanted to avoid second Shi family's old mistress's wrath before going back. Since she said so, Sangwan did not want to chase her away, so she smiled and allowed her to do as she pleased. Seeing that Hong Yi and the other maidservants were drinking tea and eating snacks, she called for Luya to enter the room to change her clothes. Not long after, Sangwan changed into a red satin jacket with narrow sleeves and a long skirt with a floral print. Her hair was also slightly styled with a little jade inlaid with pearls. On her fair wrist was a beautiful green jade bracelet. She called for Nanny Li and 2 other maidservants to follow her. together with the maidservant who led the way. She left together with the maidservant who led the way. Wang was especially enthusiastic today and was beaming with joy when she saw her. Sangwon was secretly surprised and suspicious. Sangwon naturally could not say no to the Zhuang family's banquet 3 days later. She nodded with a smile and humbly asked for advice. I'm not afraid of being laughed at by mother, but this daughter-in-law has never attended such a banquet before and does not know how to dress up. I hope that mother can give me some pointers. Wang was very happy to hear her say so and smiled. Don't worry. I've already thought of this. Later on, the best tailors in our workshop will be here. We have 2 to 3 days to make the latest clothes. The female shopkeeper will also help you make the matching accessories. When the time comes, I'll have someone send it over to you. Sangwon was relieved and quickly smiled. That's great. Mother is still the most meticulous. This daughter-in-law is ashamed of her inferiority. Wang smiled and waved her hand. Our Shi family has plenty of money. This is not worth anything. Wan Yang mother heard that old Mistress Zhuang's niece is a talented woman. When the time comes, Wan Yang, you have to fight for mother and beat that woman. Let everyone know what a real talented woman is. The pressure was so great. Sangwon secretly complained. Although she thought that she was well-read, there were many talented people in the world. Since the other party had the reputation of being a talented woman, it was obvious that she was not an idle person. Not to mention other things, with old Mistress Zhuang and her mother-in-law's enthusiasm. If that woman did not have real talent, old Mistress Zhuang would not have flaunted it and would not have set up a banquet to invite her. Chapter 51. However, Sangwon knew that Wang was easy to coax and temperamental. Although she was in a difficult position, she did not dare to show any hesitation on her face. She nodded and said, Mother, don't worry. Wan Yang will not embarrass Mother. Wang smiled and said, That's good, that's good. Your family is a scholarly family. Mother believes that you will not lose to others. Wan Yang, this is not only Mother's face, but also your face. When the time comes, many of the upper-class ladies in Qingzhou will be present. When they see your true talent, let's see who dares to look down on you. Yes, Mother. Sangwon tensed up and suddenly felt a little nervous. Wang smiled and nodded. It's good that you understand. Go back. You don't have to come over to pay your respects these few days. If you want to read any books, just say it. If the food doesn't have it, let the housekeeper buy it. Upon hearing that, Sangwon did not know whether to laugh or cry. Learning was not something that could be accomplished overnight. However, since her mother-in-law had spoken, she had to put on an act for the next 2 to 3 days. Thus, she expressed her gratitude and got up to leave. Originally, Gu Fengzi would definitely accompany her to such a banquet. However, after the disturbance caused by Gu Jin, Wang could not help but feel a little guilty. She was also afraid that Madame Zhuang would have a foul mouth and deliberately provoke Sangwon and Gu Fengzi. Thus, she simply told Gu Fengzi to stay in the fu. Gu Fengzi naturally saw this as a warning sign that she had fallen out of favor in front of her aunt. Although she obediently and magnanimously agreed, she could not help but feel resentful. She resented having an unreliable father who not only could not make decisions for her, but also constantly caused trouble for her. She also complained that Wang was biased. Thinking about it, Gu Fengzi suddenly felt that even though she had a father, she was not as good as Sangwon, whose parents were both dead. At least she had a reliable brother. She had nothing. For a moment, she could not help but feel even more heartbroken. She secretly shed a lot of tears. The night before the banquet, Nanny Jiang personally delivered the new clothes and matching jewelry to Sangwon in Ning Garden. She wore an off-white collared inner garment with a light gold and peach-red collar embroidered with a small hibiscus flower. She wore a plum blossom-shaped white jade collar, and in the center of the flower was a glossy and soft pigeon blood ruby. She wore an autumn-colored smoky muslin pleated skirt with a floral pattern. She wore a hair-thin gold and silver thread at the edges. She wore a palace sash, pendant and sachet. The jasper and caltrip flower hairpin, jasper and pearl peach flower hairpin, was decorated with thin strings of tassels. and the end was decorated with thumb-sized pomegranate beads. It was a complete set of meticulously crafted jewelry, mainly made of high-quality jadeite, matched with gold, pearls and precious stones. It was flowing with light, graceful and luxurious. The tailor and shopkeeper of the embroidery workshop were indeed worthy of their reputation. This set of clothes and jewelry brought out Sangwon's appearance and temperament very well. It was luxurious but not vulgar, and there was a hint of grace and elegance in the rich. Luya and the others arranged the clothes and jewelry. Everyone who saw it was full of praise. Sangwon also liked it very much and quickly thanked Nanny Jiang with a smile. Nanny Jiang smiled half intentionally and half unintentionally. Old mistress said that young mistress should wear it as much as she wants. Young mistress will be in charge of the Shi family sooner or later. There are many good things. She then picked up a pair of gold-studded jadeite beads pendants and smiled at Sangwon. Such round and clear jadeite with such a good water source is rare. Not to mention Qingzhou, you won't be able to find a second pair in Jiangnan. This pair of pendants is old mistress's treasure. Even though she loves young mistress so much, old mistress was not willing to give it to her when young mistress got married. Sangwon looked at the pendants. They were as big as a thumb, round and cute. They were as green as spring water without any impurities. They were much more clear than her pair of high-grade jadeite bracelets. She knew that Nanny Jiang was telling the truth. Thus she smiled and said, "How can one young be treated so well by mother? I can only double my filial piety to her. Nanny Jiang, please tell mother that Wan Yang is ashamed to accept such a valuable gift. After returning from the banquet, Wan Yang will return it to mother." Nanny Jiang secretly praised. Young mistress really knows how to talk. She obviously doesn't dare to accept old mistress's treasure, but she said it with reason. Even if old mistress takes it back, she won't lose face and be called stingy. Nanny Jiang quickly smiled and said, "Young mistress, don't say that. Old mistress has specially instructed the old slave that these jewelry are for young mistress. After returning from the banquet, young mistress can keep them properly." Sangwon was slightly startled and suddenly felt more pressure. Mother-in-law even took out the treasures in the box. It could be seen that she could only win and not lose at this banquet otherwise. Then Sangwon thanks mother. "It's getting late. Nanny Jiang, please go back. We'll talk about it after returning from the banquet," Sangwon said with a smile. If she messed up at the banquet, she certainly wouldn't have the face to accept these jewelry. Nanny Feng pondered over her meaning, and also left with a smile. Early the next morning, Sangwon solemnly dressed and checked that there were no mistakes. Then, she took Mama Li Luya and the two maidservants to Wang's place. Wang was already waiting. When she saw Sangwon, her eyes lit up. She looked at her carefully and nodded repeatedly. She smiled and said, "My Wan Yang is really beautiful. Look, can you find another person with such an appearance and bearing in Qingzhou?" Everyone laughed and said, "It's not just the appearance and bearing. You can't find another person with such attire in Qingzhou." Wang was very happy. She ordered someone to bring the precious sky water jade handkerchief and replace the water red silk handkerchief in Sangwon's hands. Sangwon accepted it with a smile and thanked her. Suddenly, she thought of the humanoid puppet. She was even worse than a puppet. A puppet didn't have to think, but she was going to fight a tough battle today. The mother and daughter-in-law left the Fu in a beautiful manner. They took a group of maidservants and older women to the Zhuang family's courtyard in the southern part of the city. The Zhuang family was one of the wealthiest families in Qingzhou. There was no need to talk about the extravagance of the decoration of the house. Today, Mistress Zhuang was holding a banquet in the Yuhua Pavilion in the garden. The long, exquisite pavilion was located in a field of colorful flowers and trees. One side was facing the water, and there was a stage built by the water. When the banquet was held in the pavilion, one could enjoy the picturesque scenery. There was also the sound of the water flowing with the wind. It could be said that ingenious thoughts were put into this. When Sangwon and Wang arrived, there were already many noble ladies and young ladies in the Zhuang family's garden. They were dressed in fragrant clothes and were bedecked with jewels. They chatted and laughed nonstop. The air was filled with the faint fragrance of flowers and powder. It was very lively. Oh, big sister sure is here. Mistress Zhuang smiled and went forward to greet them. When she saw Sangwon, her eyes lit up. She couldn't help but hold Sangwon's hand and looked at her carefully. She smiled and said, "This must be Wan Yang? Kiki, indeed, Buddha needs gold and people need clothes. I almost couldn't recognize you after dressing up like this." As she said that, she smiled at the crowd and said, "Look at big sister sure, isn't this new daughter-in-law pretty? At first glance, she doesn't look any worse than those young ladies raised in the boudoir." Everyone loved to watch the fun. It was impossible to say that they weren't jealous of the Sher family. With this opportunity, how could they not join in the fun? They all smiled and said, "Not bad indeed." Wang was so angry that her face changed slightly. She wanted to refute Mistress Zhuang, but she was too anxious to say anything and could only stare at her. Sangwon smiled gently and quietly withdrew her hand. She bowed slightly to the crowd and supported Wang with a shy smile. She said to Mistress Zhuang, "Mistress Zhuang is overpraising Wan Yang too much. The Sang family is a family of farmers and scholars, and is not as rich as Mistress Zhuang's family. Thanks to old master's kindness and mother-in-law's decision, Wan Yang is fortunate to enter the Sher family. It is indeed Wan Yang's good fortune. Mother-in-law is benevolent and treats Wan Yang like her own daughter. She is good at everything. Wan Yang is really ashamed to accept her kindness. Only by serving mother-in-law with more dedication and filial piety can I repay mother-in-law's kindness." His words not only helped him out of his predicament, but he also praised Wang Shi. Wang was overjoyed and her depression was swept away. She gently patted Sangwon's hand and smiled proudly. "Once you enter the Shi family, you are a member of the Shi family. The Shi family is also yours. Wan Yang, you are educated, virtuous and filial. Your temperament is above ordinary people. No wonder little sister Zhuang is making a fuss." She chuckled after saying that. Everyone thought so too. No matter how Sangwon was in the past, she was now the eldest daughter-in-law of the Shi family. Everything in the Shi family was hers. The marriage arranged by the elders was set in stone. As long as she didn't commit a big taboo, the Shi family would never divorce her. In the future, there would be many opportunities for them to interact with each other. What was the point of offending her? It was better to take the initiative to build a good relationship with her and win a favor. Thus, they all came up to gloss over the matter with a smile and praised her greatly. Old Mistress Zhuang was bored and stopped talking with a smile. She invited everyone to take a seat. The noble ladies had to have a meal first before admiring the flowers, listening to the opera, and having fun. Soon, the banquet began and all the madams and young misses took their seats. As the daughter of the wealthiest family in Qingzhou, Wang Shi naturally sat at the main table and introduced Sangwon to the other madams. The wife of the Qingzhou's magistrate, old Mistress Li, and her daughter, the wife of the boss of Xiaji Bank, old Mistress Xia and her daughter-in-law, the wife of the landlord, old Mistress Li, and old Mistress Zhuang's sister-in-law, Jiang Shi's niece Tang Yuzhen, the talented girl mentioned by old Mistress Zhuang, and so on. Sangwon subconsciously stole a few glances at Tang Yuzhen. She was about the same age as Sangwon, had an oval face, thin shoulders, fair skin, and beautiful facial features. She wore a pine-colored embroidered dress, was graceful, reserved, and had a strong scholarly aura. She must have read a lot of books. Keenly aware of Sangwon's gaze, Tang Yuzhen raised her eyebrows and gave her a friendly smile. Sangwon was a little embarrassed and also returned a smile. Tang Yuzhen's smile was reserved and noble with self-restraint and magnanimity. Unknowingly, she revealed a kind of aloof and calm attitude. If she didn't have real talent, how could she think so highly of herself? Sangwon was a little nervous. She could only hope that old Mistress Zhuang would change her temperament and not make any more trouble. Obviously, even she herself believed this was a possibility. The food on the table was sumptuous and luxurious. Needless to say, the ladies were used to being picky and couldn't help but praise it. Only Sangwon didn't taste the food. She was only thinking about what was about to happen. After the meal, the maidservants carried the table out, burned incense, and poured tea. After the ladies rinsed their mouths, they sat in the hall and drank tea, chatting and laughing. Chapter 52. Not long after, old Mistress Zhuang invited everyone to the garden to admire the flowers. In May, the garden was a scene of hundreds of flowers blooming. Near and far, it was a splendid scene. The fragrance was intoxicating with the wind, and the bees and butterflies were flying around. The Zhuang family had many famous flowers, beautiful and enchanting. Lingering among them was pleasing to the eye. Everyone chatted and laughed, and the mood was very good. After the tour was over, old Mistress Zhuang smiled and invited everyone to sit down again. There were already maids who had set up chairs and high tables under the tall purple locust tree. Tea, fruits, and snacks were all exquisite. At the side, there were various flowers cultivated in blue and white porcelain pots. Sitting down to rest, they enjoyed the scenery and tea while chatting and laughing. It was the most comfortable. Of course, it was also good to let the young ladies compete in poetry, painting, music, and calligraphy. From the beginning, Madame Zhuang had brought Tang Yuzhen with her. Whenever she met someone, she would introduce and praise her with a smile. Everyone knew that Madame Zhuang had taken a fancy to this Miss Tang and wanted to marry her as her daughter-in-law. Then they glanced at the Shi family's daughter-in-law. After sitting down, they looked at each other and smiled knowingly. After a few words, they heard old Mistress Zhuang say with a smile, "How can there be no good poems? Forget about us old ladies. Which one of the young ladies isn't full of poetry and is knowledgeable? We have to make a few good poems to liven things up. It will add some color to this garden of famous flowers. Young ladies, you must not refuse. What do the sisters think?" All the ladies agreed. Which mother would want to bring out their daughter or daughter-in-law to compete to win over others? They thought that their own daughter was raised according to the standards of a young lady from a noble family. How could they admit defeat at the beginning of the competition? Old Mistress Zhuang smiled and said, "I have another suggestion. There are many famous flowers in the garden. If we ask the young ladies to make all of them, it will be boring. Why don't we pick 10 types of flowers and make them into flower sticks? Of course, Wan Yang is a talented girl from a scholarly family. She must make one for each type. Wan Yang, what do you think?" As she spoke, she laughed. "I'm not deliberately making things difficult for you. I just want to take this opportunity to let everyone broaden their horizons. I want them to know the difference between a scholarly family and us, the daughters of ordinary families." Wang remained calm and turned to look at Sangwan. Sangwan's heart felt relieved. Just composing a poem was not a problem for her. Moreover, although the madams present were not illiterate, their knowledge was limited. As long as they could make it, it was fine. As for whether it was good or not, they did not care too much. Moreover, since Madame Zhuang had said it, if she refused, Wang would definitely be unhappy even if she wasn't angry. Sangwan nodded slightly at Wang, indicating that she could rest assured. Wang straightened her back and said with a smile, "Since Sister Zhuang has said so, then it's settled. Don't laugh at Wan Yang if she doesn't do well." With a smile that was not a smile, she said, "It's not right for just Wan Yang to do so much. Why don't we invite Miss Tang to accompany us?" Tang Yuzhen stood up and bowed slightly to everyone. She smiled reservedly. Since that's the case, Yuzhen will accept. Unexpectedly, she agreed readily. Good. Miss Tang is really a straightforward person. Madame Zhuang was looking forward to it. She smiled and clapped her hands. Everyone saw that there was a good show to watch. At the same time, they were curious about who would win and who would lose. They all smiled and agreed. Thus, Madame Zhuang said something to the head maidservant beside her. The maidservant accepted the order and left. Immediately, a servant woman carried several long tables with writing brushes, ink, paper, and inkstone on them. Another person brought out a blue and white porcelain brush holder with 12 flower buds inside. Madame Zhuang ordered someone to bring a tray over. On the tray was a half-foot square box. Madame Zhuang opened the box and showed the item inside to everyone. She smiled and said, "This is perfume from the West. It's not an exaggeration to say that it's worth more than gold. Let's use it as today's prize. Whoever does well, this bottle of perfume will be given to them." The bottle was about 3 inches long and made of Western glass. It had a golden spiral pagoda lid with golden threads hanging from the top. At the end of the lid, there was a red coral stone the size of a cherry. Under the sun, it was exceptionally bright and beautiful. Everyone praised it and laughed, praising Madame Zhuang for her generosity. Not to mention the Western perfume that was difficult to buy even if one had the money. Such a beautifully made glass bottle was extremely rare. The coral stone on the top could be used to inlay a ring. It would be worth at least 1,000 taels of silver. This is nothing. Madame Zhuang smiled and said, such a fine and good thing should be used by the young ladies. We are old ladies. It would be a waste to keep it in our hands. Everyone laughed and said that only Madame Zhuang, who had a large family and business, could say such things. Wang's heart unconsciously tightened. Madame Zhuang was even willing to use such a rare Western perfume as a prize. It was clear that she was determined to win. She hoped that Wang Yang would be able to live up to her expectations. The young ladies laughed and went forward to take the flower sticks. One by one, they began to ponder in front of the long table. From time to time, they would whisper and joke with the people next to them. Only Sangwan and Tang Yuzhen did not draw the sticks. The madams were puzzled when they heard Madame Zhuang laugh and say, "It is said that there are 12 divisions, 12 friends and 12 servants." Just now, the flower sticks that the young ladies drew were the 12 divisions. Wan Yang, Miss Tang, you too will use the 12 divisions as your prize. Yes, madam. Tang Yuzhen and Sangwan looked at each other and nodded with a smile. The madams whispered to each other. Most of them had never heard of the 12 divisions and 12 friends. They felt that it was very novel and interesting. They all laughed and asked about it. Some of them couldn't help but look at Sangwan and think, if Wan Yang didn't even know what the 12 divisions were, then it would be a joke. Tang Yuzhen was a guest of the Zhuang family, so it was obvious that she was suspected of cheating. Wang secretly cursed. She didn't expect Madame Zhuang to be so crafty. She quickly looked at Sangwan, and saw that Sangwan's expression was still indifferent. Only then did she feel slightly relieved. Tang Yuzhen also knew that everyone would say that she cheated, so she secretly looked at Sangwan. If Sangwan didn't start, she would definitely not start. Otherwise, everyone would say that she prepared in advance. The so-called 12 divisions of flowers referred to peonies, orchids, plum blossoms, chrysanthemums, osmanthus, lotus, peonies, begonias, narcissus, wintersweet, azalea, and magnolia. These 12 types of flowers were either antique or national beauties. When they bloomed, their aura was strong and profound. Although they were ornamental and praised, people didn't dare to touch them. Every time they felt a sense of respect, they couldn't help but treat them as their teachers. Therefore, they were called the 12 divisions. This 12-grade flower was a common occurrence in poetry circles. Since ancient times, scholars had been used to talking about it. Tang Yuzhen thought that it would not be difficult for her. If she wanted to win, she would have to make a fuss about the word fast, as well as her good handwriting. Sangwan made up her mind. She unfolded the shuelang rice paper and pressed it down with a white jade paperweight. She picked up the writing brush, dipped it in thick ink, and raised her sleeve to write. Tang Yuzhen saw this and smiled. She elegantly picked up the brush and began to write. Both of them wrote very quickly. It was obvious that they had the same idea. At this time, several young ladies had already finished and returned to their seats. They smiled and watched the two compete. Both of them stopped writing almost at the same time. Madame Zhuang saw this and smiled. Both of you are really quick-witted. I don't know who is better. She ordered the servant to collect the poems. Everyone looked at them together. Madame Zhuang looked at Sangwan and smiled. I always hear your mother-in-law praise you as an outstanding person. Today's test was really surprising. In other words, she was not surprised at all that Tang Yuzhen was confident in her ability to wield the brush so freely and leisurely. Madame Zhuang is overpraising me. Sangwan smiled. Wang didn't want to hear this and coldly said, My Wan Yang has always been very good and low-key. It's not surprising that Madame Zhuang doesn't know. Madame Zhuang smiled and didn't say anything. She looked at the poems with everyone else. Together with 7 or 8 young ladies, there was a total of dozens of poems. The ladies were just watching for fun, praising each poem. It was hard to tell who was better at the moment. There were those who were calm and moderate who praised both sides. There were those who were on good terms with Madame Zhuang, or those who were jealous of the Shi family, who praised Tang Yuzhen. There were also those who liked Sangwan's temperament and wanted to curry favor with the Shi family, who praised Sangwan. For a moment, there was no clear winner. But even if everyone had different thoughts and goals, they all looked at Sangwan in a new light and no longer looked down on her. Initially, they felt that the Sang family had taken advantage of the marriage with the Shi family. But now, they felt that the Sang family's young ladies were indeed outstanding. Those ladies who were waiting to be married off, and had secretly chosen Shi Fengjiu as their son-in-law, were also convinced. Madame Li is knowledgeable and fair. Why don't we listen to what Madame Li has to say? One of the ladies said with a smile. Madame Li was the wife of Qingzhou's Li Zhizhou. Her judgment was the fairest. Everyone smiled and looked at her. The Shi family and the Zhuang family were both big families and had a close relationship with Li Zhizhou. Madame Li was put in a difficult position and smiled. How should I say this? I think both of them did equally well. Coincidentally, both of their chrysanthemum poems are outstanding. Young Mistress Shi's Lotus poem and Young Mistress Tang's Plum Blossom poem are relatively inferior. However, Young Mistress Shi's hairpin-style small regular script is graceful and elegant. She must have practiced a lot of kung fu, right? When the crowd heard that, they compared the two's handwriting. Sure enough, Sangwan's handwriting was as smooth as flowing water, neat and delicate. The size of the words on each poem was the same, giving a good visual impression to the audience. On the other hand, Tang Yuzhen was not so particular. Her strokes were light and heavy. In some places, the ink had not dried yet, and when she passed it, the ink flowed and formed a conspicuous black spot. It was very eye-catching. The ladies could not help but laugh. Madame Li's eyes are really sharp. Young Mistress Shi's handwriting is indeed excellent. Sangwan hurriedly tried to be modest, but her heart was slightly bitter. That stroke of calligraphy was actually something she learned when she lived alone in a remote courtyard in her previous life. Looking at the past, it was especially melancholy. It also secretly aroused her fighting spirit. In this life, she wanted to change everything. She wanted everything to be different. Chapter 53. Wang Shi was naturally happy. She smiled proudly and glanced at old Mistress Zhuang. Old Mistress Zhuang was very dissatisfied, but there was nothing she could do. Just as she was about to speak, she heard old Mistress Li laugh again and said, "But today I am talking about the matter as it is, but I have digressed. In my opinion, it is better to send their two best and most unsatisfactory poems to the teachers in the manner for comments. In any household, there would always be 2 or 3 teachers who were well-read." With old Mistress Li's suggestion, the ball was kicked out and no one would be offended. Wang was already very satisfied. At least the Shi family would not be gossiped about having such a daughter-in-law. She might as well be generous and said with a smile, "Why so troublesome? It's not easy for Miss Tang to come from afar. I think the perfume should be given to Miss Tang." A bottle of Western perfume was considered a rare item by others, but to the Shi family, it was not difficult to get a bottle. Wang did not take it to heart. Wang was being magnanimous and kind, but she did not know that her words made old Mistress Zhuang and Miss Tang feel greatly insulted. It was as if they were fighting over a bottle of perfume. Miss Tang suffered the loss of being a guest from afar. Although she was angry and ashamed, it was inconvenient for her to say anything. Old Mistress Zhuang sneered and said, That won't do. How can we change what we have agreed on? The perfume is a small matter. What we want is a proper name." As she said that, she immediately ordered someone to send out the 4 poems that she had picked out. "Really, my good intentions are taken for granted." Wang was also angry and said in a bad mood. Everyone saw the smell of gunpowder between the two and quickly smiled to smooth things over. Old Mistress Zhuang's sister-in-law, old Mistress Jiang, was also a little annoyed. She smiled lightly and said, "In my opinion, young Master Shi is not taking the imperial examinations. It doesn't matter if the old mistress of the household knows these poems or not. The Shi family's business is so big, I'm sure they need a good wife, right? Oh, I forgot. I heard that old Mistress Shi's niece, Miss Gu, grew up in the Shi family. She is good at managing the household and even doing business. No wonder the Sher family's young mistress can spend her time leisurely reading books. It's because there's someone to share her worries. After Madame Jiang finished speaking, there was complete silence. Gu Fangzi and Shi Fengjiu were childhood sweethearts. Everyone in Qingzhou knew about this. Madame Jiang was clearly trying to sow discord between them. Her words not only ridiculed Sangwan for her ignorance, but also ridiculed Madame Wang for her hypocrisy. She obviously valued her niece Gu Fangzi more, but she actually used Sangwan to show off. This was Wang's sore point. Hearing this, she was shocked and angry, but she didn't try to hide it. Instead, she subconsciously looked at Sangwan to see how she would react. Sangwan was both embarrassed and angry. It was impossible to say that she didn't resent her mother-in-law. The two families had a marriage agreement, but she allowed and even supported the relationship between Shi Fengjiu and Gu Fangzi. But what was done could not be undone. Sangwan couldn't change the fact and she couldn't show it. Seeing that Wang was looking at her, Sangwan felt even more embarrassed and wanted to complain. Mother-in-law is kind and benevolent. What's wrong with taking cousin in since young? Cousin is grateful for her kindness and wants to repay it. Isn't that human nature? As for Wan Yang, what does that have to do with cousin? Madame Zhang's words are really puzzling. Sangwan's tone was still gentle, but there was a coldness between her brows. Her bright eyes stared at Madame Jiang without blinking. She didn't show any anger, and the aura of a wife was awe-inspiring. Madame Jiang was pressured by her aura, and actually felt a little guilty. She forced a cold smile and said, "You don't understand, but that doesn't mean your mother-in-law doesn't." Wang angrily said, "I don't understand either. Wan Yang is our Shi family's eldest daughter-in-law, and the future mistress of the household. This was something that would never change. What is the meaning of Madame Jiang's words?" Sangwan smiled and said, "Mother, I think Madame Jiang has good intentions. She is worried that your daughter-in-law isn't virtuous enough to be husband's virtuous wife. She is worried about our Shi family. Madame Jiang, don't worry. Wan Yang won't let you worry. My position as the richest in the Shi family is still far away. Wan Yang doesn't dare to show off, but she knows a thing or two about managing the household. Oh, other than writing poems, young Mistress Shi also knows how to use the abacus? I just don't know if I can see it for myself." Madame Jiang saw Madame Zhuang's face turn ugly and couldn't help but feel annoyed. At this moment, she couldn't wait for Sangwan to make a fool of herself. She immediately took advantage of the situation and said aggressively, "That's right. If she doesn't even know how to use the abacus, can she still be the daughter-in-law of the Shi family? Sister Wang, don't you think so?" Madame Zhuang also sneered. Wang did not speak and looked at Sangwan. "Then please bring the abacus over. Sangwan will embarrass herself." Sangwan was not afraid and smiled. Madame Zhuang did not believe that she had used the abacus in the Sang household, and nodded with a smile. She immediately ordered someone to bring it over, but in her heart she sneered. "Let's see how long you can be stubborn for." Not only did the maidservant bring over a black oily abacus, she also brought over a roll of account books. She smiled and said, "This servant thinks that this abacus is used to calculate accounts. Without an account book, what can the abacus calculate? Coincidentally, this account book was reported from our household's garden last month. Madame Zhuang had already calculated it. Why don't we ask young Mistress Shi to demonstrate it? Acting on your own initiative. Meddlesome." Madame Zhuang glared at the servant, but the corner of her eyes flew towards Sangwan. She faked a smile and said, "Wan Yang, what do you think? Deference is no substitute for obedience." Sangwan did not raise an eyebrow. She took the account book and the abacus and sat down. She set the abacus to 0 and opened the account book to her left. They watched as she flipped through the account book with one hand while her other hand moved, as if she was the most dexterous swallow in the clouds. The beads on the abacus jumped up and down like hemp, making crisp crackling sounds. Her movements were as smooth and skillful as moving clouds and flowing water. Her posture was indescribably elegant and beautiful. Everyone was stunned for a moment. The whole place was silent as countless pairs of eyes stared at her skillful hands. Madame Zhuang was also stunned. She was different from Wang. Wang was lazy and all the household affairs were handled by the housekeepers and Gu Fangzi. The housekeepers were supervised by the housekeepers, and the housekeepers were directly led by her son. She did not manage the household affairs. However, Madame Zhuang loved to worry. Most of the accounts that were handed in had to be personally verified. Seeing Sangwan's skills, she knew that it was real and could not be faked. A total of 3,672 taels of silver. Is that correct? Following a crisp paw sound, Sangwan's 5 fingers stopped abruptly and fell to the ground like a pearl. The maidservant looked at the paper in her hand and was speechless. However, Madame Zhuang remembered every account book clearly and did not need to look to know that this number was correct. Young mistress sure is indeed amazing. Madame Zhuang could not help but sigh. She subconsciously glanced at Tang Yuzhen and her heart was filled with melancholy. Shi Fengji was not worse than her Xian. Could it be that his wife was also better than her own son's wife? All the madams cheered and praised. Even if they did not know how to use the abacus, they had seen their confidantes and daughters-in-law do it. However, no one could do it as well as Sangwan. It was not an exaggeration to say that it was intoxicating. Wang was grinning from ear to ear. Even she did not know that Sangwan had such skills. In the future, when the Shi family was handed over to her, she could rest assured. It could be seen that the old master's foresight was indeed not something she could compare to. When the crowd saw that Madame Zhuang and Madame Zhang's faces had turned ugly, they hurriedly chatted and laughed. After all, they were in the Zhuang household, and they could not make the hosts uncomfortable. Not far away, behind a cluster of hibiscus flowers, a handsome young man with black hair tied up in a high ponytail stood there, looking listlessly at the gathering. This young man was the only son of Master and Madame Zhuang, Zhuang Weixian. Moreover, it was not his intention to stand there and peep. It was his mother, Madame Zhuang, who strongly urged him to do so. His mother's enthusiasm for his marriage had never subsided. Instead, she became more and more courageous. Today, she let him stand here so that he could observe Miss Tang. He knew that when the banquet was over, his mother would be in high spirits and ask him how Miss Tang was. Did he like it? Was he satisfied? Then, without waiting for him to answer, she would praise Miss Tang endlessly, praising her to the heavens and earth. Zhuang Weixian watched for a while, and also listened to the madam's comments. He could not help but nod his head a few times. A few of the poems sounded good, but he did not pay attention to whether it was Miss Tang or young Mistress Shi who wrote them. Subconsciously, he would rather believe that it was young Mistress Shi who wrote them, who asked his mother to push Miss Tang to him. The unforeseen events that happened later shocked him, and he could not help but frown slightly. He felt that his mother and aunt had gone a little overboard. He could not bear to look at young Mistress Shi anymore. He secretly prayed that this young Mistress Shi had a strong heart, and would not cry in front of him. Otherwise, the Zhuang family would lose all face. That was too unkind. Of course, even if young Mistress Shi cried, Zhuang Weixian would not feel that there was anything wrong, because which woman could stand such humiliation? He was very clear about the relationship between that bastard Shi Fengju and his cousin. Furthermore, that bastard had complained to him about the marriage more than once before the Sang family's young mistress married into their family. He was even more disgusted and hostile towards the Sang family's young mistress. This was something that Zhuang Weixian could understand very well. Although their experiences were not exactly the same, in a sense they were in the same boat. He knew how difficult it was to have a woman who was truly in love with him. He also knew that Miss Sang would definitely be miserable after marrying into the family. Shi Fengju, that brat, looked gentle and harmless, but when he was scheming against someone, he did not even have a draft. He would always be able to hit the nail on the head, and then give you an absolutely fatal blow. Therefore, Miss Sang's life in the Shi family would definitely not be easy. Now that he was humiliated in front of so many people, his heart was touched, and it was not easy for him to endure it. However, he did not expect that what happened next would surprise and shock him. This Miss Sang actually went from being gentle and demure to being overbearing. Her hand at the abacus was even more stunning and admirable. He had never seen someone who could use an abacus so well before. Chapter 54. That bastard, he doesn't know how lucky he is. Zhuang Weixian laughed and sighed. He was envious, jealous, and regretful as he shook his head. Who are you? Why are you here? Zhuang Weixian was still laughing and sighing. The smile on his face hadn't disappeared when a woman suddenly stood in front of him. She stared at him with a pair of vigilant eyes and asked in a deep voice. Zhuang Weixian couldn't help but be startled and blurted out. Who are you? This girl wasn't from the Zhuang family. The person who came was Luya. The madams and misses were enjoying the flowers in the garden and were being served by the Zhuang family's servants. The maidservants who came along were also led by the Zhuang family's eldest maidservant to play in the garden. Luya unintentionally saw a person behind the bushes. Out of curiosity, she quietly approached the person. She saw that the person's eyes were fixated on the madams and young misses. As she looked at the person's face, she even revealed a silly smile. Luya became angry. It's none of your business. Luya raised her chin and disdainfully said, You lecher, how dare you peek here? If the madams and misses find out, they will expose you. You look like a decent person, but your mind is so dirty. Go, go, go. If you don't go, I will call for help. Lecher? Decent person? Dirty mind? Zhuang Weixian couldn't help but laugh. If his mother heard this, he didn't know how angry she would be. However, he was also very angry. Do I look that bad? Zhuang Weixian angrily snorted and touched his chin. He shouldn't be that much worse than Shifengju, right? No, he was a little better than him. Shameless. Luya glared at him and impatiently said, Who cares what you look like? Go, go. If you don't go, I will really call for help. At that time you will be beaten into a pig's head. You look like a cultured and educated person. Don't you know when to stop? Zhuang Weixian laughed, but suddenly had the urge to tease Luya. Retracting his smile, he took 2 steps back and bowed to Luya. With a serious expression he said, To tell you the truth, I lost my way and mistakenly entered this place. If I was rude to you, please forgive me. I wonder if Miss can point out the way so that I can get out? Luya didn't know how to react to his sudden change. She hurriedly took 2 steps back and stammered, Well, I'm not from this family. I don't know the way. Where are you going? Why don't I ask around for you? Zhuang Weixian was secretly amused. He raised his eyes and saw the words Lin Fengge written on the plaque of the pavilion in the northwest. He then said, The young master of the Zhuang family asked to meet me at Lin Fengge. Luya was stunned. She narrowed her eyes and stared at him. Are you really going to the Wind Pavilion? Yeah. Zhuang Weixian nodded seriously. He held back his laughter and sighed. Unfortunately, the Zhuang family's garden is too big. I couldn't find it even after looking for a long time. Luya snorted and rolled her eyes at him. She said, Don't make fun of your little grandaunt. If that's not Lin Fengge, then what is it? Don't tell me you didn't see those 3 big words. This time it was Zhuang Weixian's turn to be surprised. He was a little embarrassed that his lie was exposed. He stammered and laughed dryly. You can read. Luya snorted. That's right. So what if I can read? Don't think you can be so arrogant just because you read 2 books. Do you think everyone is a fool? I think you're definitely not a good person. As she spoke, she unconsciously looked around. Seeing that there was no one around, she secretly thanked her lucky stars. She looked behind Zhuang Weixian, causing him to subconsciously look back. She quickly turned around and ran away. Fortunately, no one saw her. Otherwise, if someone saw her in the Zhuang family's garden with a shady man, not only would she lose face, but first madam and first young mistress would also lose face. Really? Why did she poke her nose into other people's business? Zhuang Weixian knew that he had been fooled. When he turned around, he only saw a slim figure running away. He couldn't help but laugh and shake his head. He had been wise all his life, but he was fooled by a little girl. Really? He didn't know which family this girl belonged to, but her courage wasn't small. Seeing the madams and young ladies standing up, he guessed that they wanted to go to Yuhua Pavilion to watch the play. Zhuang Weixian knew that the task his mother gave him had been barely completed. He brushed his sleeves and turned to leave. Over at the madams and young ladies' side, Sangwan's amazing skill with the abacus was praised by everyone. Just as everyone was praising her, The 4 poems that had been sent to the gentleman for evaluation were sent back. Madame Zhuang's eyes lit up again, hoping that Tang Yuzhen would win this time. Who knew that the 3 gentlemen in the Zhuang residence had unanimously selected Sangwon's work? Madame Zhuang forced a smile and personally handed the bottle of perfume to Sangwon. She smiled faintly and said, "It's really admirable. Wan Yang really lives up to her name. This perfume suits you just right. Come, pour some out and see if you like it." Although Sangwon had never seen Western perfume in her 2 lifetimes, she had seen a record of it in a novel that had circulated in recent years. It was a joke. It was said that there was a person who didn't know the value of a Western perfume and wanted to pour some out through the small hole to smell it. However, he didn't know that the Western perfume bottle had an exquisite structure. It looked like there was a hole, but the perfume inside couldn't be poured out. Instead, it was cleverly pressed on the cap to evenly spray out a mist. That person poured out the perfume for a long time, but couldn't get it out. Obviously, Madame Zhuang also wanted to make fun of her. Sangwon's temperament was cautious. Even if she didn't understand something, she would never test it in front of outsiders, let alone in front of Madame Zhuang. Hearing what was said, she smiled and said, "How can such an exquisite thing not be good? Madame must be joking. Wan Yang likes it very much. Thank you for your generous gift." Finished speaking, she didn't wait for Madame Zhuang to speak again. She put the perfume bottle into her sleeve and obediently sat beside Wang. Madame Zhuang smiled and could only say a few polite words. Wang's heart, which was in her throat, was finally put down. Speaking of which, Shi Fengjiu also gave her a bottle of perfume. Shi Nanijiang, Xiu Li and Xiu Chun had a joke. They clearly saw that there was perfume inside and there were small holes on the outside, but they couldn't pour it out. In the end, Xiu Li, that lass, somehow pressed on the right spot and sprayed it all over Xiu Chun. Xiu Chun was so frightened that she screamed and the master and servants laughed together. Even if the Sang family's entire fortune, they wouldn't be able to buy such a precious bottle. How could Sangwon have seen it before? If what Madame Zhuang said was true, it would be a big joke. At that moment, someone from Yuhua Pavilion came to report that the play was ready. Madame Zhuang put away her mood and invited everyone to go over with a smile. Intentionally or unintentionally, there were more people around Wang and Sangwon. The madams and young misses of the various families took the initiative to speak to Sangwon. Obviously, they had accepted her position as the young mistress of the Shi family. She was thoughtful and talented. No matter how capable Gu Fangzi was, it was impossible for her to surpass her. Although Wang didn't care about the family's affairs and loved her niece, she wasn't a foolish person. Otherwise, she wouldn't have insisted on this engagement. It could be seen that she wouldn't allow the matter of favoring the concubine and neglecting the wife to happen. In other words, Sangwon's position in the Shi family was already set in stone and could no longer be shaken. If she didn't take advantage of the fact that she was still young and had just entered the family to befriend the future mistress of the Shi family, her weight would be much lighter in the future. Once they entered Yuhua Pavilion, everyone took their seats. After a round of polite greetings, the madams all chose a play. On the stage, the sleeves of the water fluttered lightly, and the performers began to sing and act out their roles with thousands of twists and turns. Only then did the atmosphere become better. It wasn't until the sun set in the west that the madams left one after another. Madame Zhuang sent them off with a smile, but that smile couldn't be said to be a bit forced. On the carriage back to the residence, Wang finally laughed heartily. She couldn't help but be elated when she thought of Madame Zhuang's deflated look. Our Wan Yang is exhausted today. Wang smiled. The more she looked at Sangwon, the more satisfied she was. She said generously, "You should rest well these few days. There's no need to go and pay your respects. If you want to eat something, just ask the kitchen to prepare it. If you want to buy something, just ask the head housekeeper to buy it. Let's not talk about other things, but our family doesn't lack money." Sangwon knew that her mother-in-law always spoke like this, so she hurriedly thanked her with a smile. Who knew that before going to bed at night, Nanny Jiang would come again? Sangwon didn't expect that someone would come at this time. She quickly took a jade hairpin to tidy up her hair, and put on an autumn-colored outer robe to welcome her. Wang had been happily praising Sang-won ever since she returned from the Zhuang residence. Nanny Jiang was a shrewd person. She knew that young mistress would definitely win face for old mistress today. When she saw Sang-won coming out to welcome her, she quickly smiled and said, "Young mistress, quickly go in. Don't catch a cold from the night wind." How can the old slave be worthy of young mistress's courtesy? Polite words were enough to make one's heart feel better. There was no need to take it seriously. Sang-won smiled and ordered the servants to bring a small stool for Nanny Jiang to sit on. Hong Yi had already cleverly served tea. Nanny Jiang didn't hurry to sit down or receive the tea. After thanking her, she brought forward a foot-long box in her hands and said with a smile, "Old mistress specially asked the old slave to send this to nourish young mistress's body. Old mistress also said that this high-quality bird's nest is the most nourishing. She asked young mistress to ask the servants to boil a bowl of it every night and eat it before going to bed." Sang-won personally took the box and handed it to Mama Lee, who was standing at the side. She smiled gratefully and said, "Mother has to worry about such a small matter. I really feel uneasy. It's late today. I'll go over tomorrow to thank Mother." Nanny Jiang smiled and said, "No wonder old mistress said that young mistress is sensible and polite. Out of 1,000 people, there won't be one like young mistress. Old mistress said that young mistress should just accept it, and that there's no need to go over and thank her. Old mistress treats you as her daughter. You don't have to be so polite. Old mistress said that it's enough as long as she knows that you have the heart." Sang-won could only smile and agree. She then invited Nanny Jiang to sit down and drink tea. Sang-won thought that since it was already late, Nanny Jiang would take her leave. Unexpectedly, Nanny Jiang thanked Sang-won and sat down. While drinking tea, Nanny Jiang continued to chat with Sang-won. Her words were full of praises for Sang-won, such as how old mistress valued her, and how much she cared for her. Sang-won could only smile perfunctorily. After sending Nanny Jiang, who was full of smiles, away with great difficulty, Sang-won returned to her room to rest. Luya made a mattress in front of the bed to accompany her. "Young mistress, Nanny Jiang is very talkative tonight." As usual, the master and servant would chat a little before going to bed. Luya chattered endlessly. She usually doesn't talk much. Chapter 55. You think so too? Sang-won lifted her hand and placed it under her neck as she sighed softly. "That's right, it's so obvious, who wouldn't notice it?" Luya's eyes lit up and she clapped her hands with a smile. "This servant knows now. It must be because young mistress has helped our Sher family gain some face today. Old mistress is happy, so Nanny Jiang is trying to curry favor with young mistress." Sang-won giggled and scolded with a smile. "I thought you had improved after following Mama Lee for a while, but you're still a muddle-headed worm." Luya was taught by Mama Lee wholeheartedly. The feeling of being enlightened often accompanied her. From time to time, she would share her experiences with Mama Lee, and Mama Lee would also praise her with a gratified expression. She felt that her observation skills were not as good as Mama Lee's, but compared to the past, it was still 2 levels higher. Hearing Sang-won's words, she was dissatisfied and pouted. "Young mistress, please reason with this servant. How is this servant muddle-headed?" Sang-won propped up her chin and looked at her with a smile. "Nanny Jiang is an old person who has served old mistress for her entire life. Even young master has to respect her. As long as she doesn't cause any trouble, the Sher family will have to take care of her when she's old. Why would she want to curry favor with me?" Luya was stunned for a moment before blurting out, "That's right, if she wants to curry favor with you, she might even make Miss Gu unhappy. There's no reason for her to be so foolish as to get herself involved." Young mistress, the servant has misspoken." Sang-won's eyes flashed with a trace of loneliness, but she smiled and shook her head. "You're right, there's no reason for her to be so foolish." "Young mistress." Luya was a little embarrassed and took the initiative to ask, "How about this servant help you find out?" "Don't," Sang-won said. "We can't easily find out about First Madam's affairs. Don't act recklessly." Luya was slightly embarrassed and hurriedly said with a smile, "Of course this servant won't go by myself. Wouldn't that cause trouble for young mistress? This servant can convey a message to godmother. Young mistress, don't worry. There's nothing that godmother can't find out about in this residence. Furthermore, I can guarantee that no one will notice. Luya said proudly and felt honored. That won't do. Sangwon still said. The first madam is the first young master's biological mother. Do you think Mama Lee would do such a thing? Besides, I don't want to make things difficult for her. Don't worry, if there really is something, Nanny Jiang will say it herself. We don't need to ask. Luya's eyes widened, and were full of doubt and disbelief. Sangwon only smiled slightly and said, Go to sleep. Then she didn't say anything else. For the next few days, Wang Shi showed her unparalleled love and care for Sangwon. Good things were sent to Ning Garden one after another. Clothes, jewelry, rouge, face powder, antique ornaments, toys, and all kinds of fresh fruits, snacks, trendy delicacies, and so on were all sent to Ning Garden. Everyone could tell that eldest young mistress had won the favor. Eldest young mistress was clearly telling everyone who was the real future mistress of the residence. Everyone in Ning Garden also rose in status. Luya, Xingji, and the others were fawned on by their mothers and sisters wherever they went. The number of stewards' wives and wives who went to Ning Garden to greet them also increased. Sangwon was always polite, and everyone was happy. They also played along with First Madam and praised her to the skies. Every time Wang sent something or a message, it was always Nanny Jiang who came to convey it. Sangwon politely smiled and waited for Nanny Jiang to speak. Unexpectedly, after a few days, Nanny Jiang's smile became strained and forced, but she still didn't say anything. Sangwon was very puzzled, and couldn't help but secretly ponder. Her mind suddenly flashed and she came back to her senses. Nanny Jiang wouldn't say anything unless she took the initiative to ask. Of course, it was useless for her to ask Nanny Jiang. She should ask Wang. I haven't come to greet Mother for a few days. Mother's complexion is better than before. Today, Sangwon came to the main courtyard dressed neatly, and leisurely greeted Wang with a smile. Isn't that so? Wang said with a smile. Mother's heart is happy. She eats well and sleeps well, so her complexion is naturally better. It's just a pity, Wang pretended to sigh. Recently there has been a troublesome matter in my heart. If it can be solved as soon as possible, there will be no knot in my heart. Sangwon was originally thinking about how to get her mother-in-law to speak, but who knew that her mother-in-law couldn't wait. This was good, and it saved her a lot of trouble. Seeing Nanny Jiang's eyes signal the maids to leave, Sangwon's expression also became dignified. She stood up and said to Wang, Mother, if you have any troubles, why don't you tell your daughter-in-law? Even if your daughter-in-law doesn't have the ability to solve your problems, I think it will make you feel better. Wang didn't pay attention to Nanny Jiang's expression and hurriedly said, Wan Yang, this matter really does have something to do with you. To solve this matter, we have to rely on you. Me? Sangwon was puzzled. Wang gestured for her to sit down and asked with a smile, Wan Yang, tell me honestly, how do I treat you as your mother-in-law? Sangwon wanted to get up again, but Wang insisted on sitting down. She could only continue to sit and said, You love your daughter-in-law very much and are considerate in everything. Your daughter-in-law is truly grateful to you and is also filial to you. Is that true? Of course. Wan Yang wouldn't dare to lie. Wang nodded her head in satisfaction and asked, What do you think of Fengzi's character? Hearing Wang mention Gu Fengzi, Sangwon's heart subconsciously tightened. She nodded her neck stiffly and squeezed out a smile. Cousin Fengzi, she is very good. Wang heaved a sigh of relief and said, If you think she's good, then I'm relieved. Wan Yang, you've been married into our Shi family for quite some time now. That the matter between Fengzi and Fengjiu, you more or less know about it, right? Sangwon was embarrassed and shocked. Her heartbeat quickened and she stuttered. Why did you bring that up? Since the most difficult thing had been said, Wang didn't have any more misgivings and simply said, Fengzi will definitely marry Fengjiu as a concubine. I won't hide it from you. Wan Yang, you won't have any thoughts about it, right? You're a good woman. You don't need me to tell you that you should follow your husband's wishes. Sangwon's face flushed red from embarrassment. With great difficulty, She resisted the urge to sniffle and said softly, Wan Yang understands. As long as my husband likes it, Wan Yang will not have any objections. That's good. Hearing Wang speak, Sangwon's body suddenly trembled uncontrollably. She felt as if she had fallen into an ice cellar and fell into a deep fear. She had a premonition that what Wang was going to say was something she didn't want to hear the most. It was something that haunted her nightmares from her past life. However, Wang's voice sounded steadily. I think since Fengzi is going to marry into our family, the earlier she marries 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 into our family. At least both of you can get to know each other quickly and get along well in the future. Furthermore, Fengzi will have a better reason to take care of things. Wan Yang, what do you say? What do I say? What can I say? Sangwon did not open her mouth. She bit her lips tightly and tried her best to control her sobbing. Humiliation, embarrassment, anger, unwillingness, and helplessness swept over her, squeezing her heart until she could not breathe. She had married into the family for less than 2 months. Was her mother-in-law so impatient to marry Gu Fengzi into the family? Everyone was thinking for Gu Fengzi, but who would have thought of her? If the Shi family did not like the Sang family, why didn't they reject the marriage in the first place? Was marrying her a great gift? Was she supposed to feel lucky and be grateful? The Sang family had never cared about this marriage. She, Sangwon, had never hoped to marry into this rich family. At this moment, Sangwon resented her mother-in-law, Wang, even though she knew that Gu Fengzi was behind her mother-in-law's decision. Don't worry, Wang thought that she had misgivings and assured her. You are our Shi family's official daughter-in-law. No one will be able to snatch away your position as the young mistress. In the future, when Fengzi gives birth to a son and is promoted to a second wife, she will have to respect you as sister. Wang's tongue spun and she finally felt that it was not appropriate to say those words. She held it in and said, I will also teach Fengzi to respect you. You are educated and reasonable while she is smart. The two of you will definitely get along well. It is Fengju's fortune to have the two of you by his side. Yes, Sangwon endured the pain in her heart and secretly breathed a sigh of relief before saying softly, Everything will be decided by mother. Wang hesitated for a moment before saying hesitantly, For this matter, it is better for you to make the decision. This will show how virtuous and magnanimous you are. How about this, when Fengju returns you will take the initiative to mention it. When that time comes, Fengju will definitely have a whole new level of respect for you. He will respect you even more. What do you think? Sangwon's body turned cold and her face turned pale. She almost couldn't breathe. Virtuous? Magnanimous. It was clearly a bitter fruit, but she was forced to swallow it and even wanted her to smile and say that it was delicious. And she even said that it was for her own good? Sangwon suddenly felt an unprecedented sense of disappointment and sorrow. She thought that everything would be different, and that everything would develop differently. She didn't expect that after going around in circles, everything would have its own destiny. After going around in a circle, she was back to square one. Could it be that in this life, she would not be able to escape from a miserable and lonely life? So be it. She had already gone through so much in her previous life. In this life, she might as well throw away her pride. At most, she would just leave after a year. She didn't believe that there would be no place for her in this world. Even if she were to die, this life would not be worse than her previous one. Mother is right, Wan Yang understands. When Lord Husband returns, Wan Yang will definitely tell him personally. Sangwon endured the pain in her heart and said softly, Mother knows that you are the most sensible. Unlike those shallow and jealous people who only know how to cause trouble. Wang was overjoyed and could not help but hold Sangwon's hand and pat it. She then raised her head and smiled towards the direction of the partition. Fengzi, why aren't you coming out? Sangwon was startled and looked over. She saw Gu Fengzi in a begonia red dress walking over shyly. She turned around and called out, Aunt Wang. The corner of her lips curled up slightly. You're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.